We're getting answers, y'all. We're getting answers. I mean, nothing tangible on paper at this moment, answers, but there is something we can do. So if you've been feeling out of sorts, I know, the word that I got, the download I got today was knowing, trust your knowing. But, I realize that for many of us, just tuning into our intuition is challenging and also maybe not satisfying enough, especially when there is fear. So 2 people you got to follow if you're not already, Empress CJJ and Ethical Psychic. Now, I just watched the Ethical Psychic's last post, and at the end, I got full body chills and a ringing in my left ear, which just absolutely said to me, and I checked and confirmed, and it's true, that this is the piece I want to relay to you. So the Ethical Psychic said that the orbs have been waiting for our leaders to tell them to step in. And I'll let you watch her latest post so that you understand why we may want them to step in. But basically, we, the people, have the power. Remember, I've been telling you that? And we, the people, we don't need to be the government to say, hey, you up there in the sky that I've been seeing video of, that I know are circling the planet right now, just waiting to pitch in and help. We can say, hey, we need your help. So I want you to psychically, out loud, whatever, I want you to take a moment, get centered, get grounded, and ask for help. Because we can be in our power and ask for help. That's part of being powerful, is to know whom to call on. And so, yeah, I love this idea. I'm going to go do this now. I believe I already have, just incidentally, in my little internal conversations with them. If it feels crazy, who cares? The world is mad now anyway. So let's go full on to Lulu, Blue Lulu, whatever you want to call it. And let's get that help we deserve.
Hello people, January 6, 2025. A sad day in our history. I just wanted to come on here to urge people to hold on to hope. I know it's challenging at this time because we're really hoping to see something today. I am doing a live later on today at 6 p.m. so we can just gather our forces and share with one another, encouraging all of the other dreaming women and intuitives to please come on the live. And if you want to appear on my live, just reach out and let me know. I think people would like to hear from a few of us, not just me. And I'll just say a couple of things. I don't have any new information yet today. I'm still processing some of the information I already got. What I was told before today was that we were going to have a grid outage today. And I didn't know if that was symbolic or literal. I was hoping it was literal because the interpretation of the grid outage that's symbolic is, of course, failure or silence or no news. But alas, the snowstorm did not deliver an actual outage, and so instead we got the symbolic outage. But I do remain hopeful, and I do stick by what I've been saying, what my guides have been saying about there being a resolution on the horizon. This does match some of what my guides have been saying for a while, which is that we're going to have to go through some things before we get to the point where the Lotus Queen is seated. I was hoping that wasn't really the case. And if things had been resolved today or started today, we might have felt that there was less to go through. But I suppose either way, whether it was today or some other day, there are some things that we have to go through because some people are not going to be happy either way. And so we're going to have to figure that out as a realm. So I just want to encourage everybody to be in community today, reach out to other people, meditate, spend time in nature, and do whatever you can to self-soothe while you deal with this disheartening news. But if you can in any way, please try to hold on to hope. And I will continue to do whatever I can to assist people in holding on to hope and providing messages and guidance wherever I can.
Okay, darling, let me clarify. When I said they are now asking to be saved from themselves, and even they were hoping that Team Blue were going to remain the adults in the room and stop anything really crazy from happening, it was in reference to that congressman. I forgot if he's former or still sitting, but going on the news and basically making a public plea to President Biden to do something. Can't he do something with his presidential powers to stop this? Now that we see what we bought. And I just wanted to highlight how important the psychological part of this has been. Again, looking at this from the view of something that's been cooking for 8 to 10 years, okay? Things that have been tracked and monitored for years, okay? The psychological part is huge. Like the fact that Dumpty is the perfect stooge. He can be used by everyone, including our own government, because he's very predictable. You know how rare that is to get someone that's so effing predictable that even if they go rogue off of the trajectory, you still know what they're going to do because they're that, okay? That's also part of the reason why he got away with so much. He's a slippery fish because he was the bait fish for everyone else, and everyone else knows he's a stooge too. That's why you've got Muscatina, Heritage, Ruski, I ran away, Chinese take all these places, right? Using this guy because they know. But what I was saying is that even Team Red is used to Team Blue being the adults in the room, used to us being the ones who try to stand up and stop it, and then they complain about it. But in reality, they know that they need that to keep them at least quasi in check. And for the first time, the entirety of the blue team has backed off and said, nope, you know what, do it. We're letting the inmates run the prison. Go ahead. Nope, we're not going to stand up. Did you know, thanks to my friend Raw Cognizance, I mentioned this on my podcast too. I totally missed that. That was the first time there was a certification with 0 objections in almost 40 years. It's very common for there to be at least 1 objection somewhere over something. So the fact that there were none over this one, when we know that there was shit, and not more so than that, not just no objections, smiles, nope, peaceful transfer. We're doing our constitutional duty, nope, and they're all smiling at each other, coordinated and clothed, just, doing our job. Like I said, the closer we get, the more obvious it becomes. So on the one hand, Blue Team not doing anything has ruined part of Dumpty's defense because them making an accusation could then count as interference on their side if the DOJ or some other agency decides to hop in and go after him. He can say, oh, nope, because they were making accusations and they were saying things and they tainted this whole thing, so you got to throw it away. That's why they haven't said anything. That's why reports haven't come out yet. I swear, you guys in the comments every day, so if they have all this, how come it wasn't released earlier? Because it's about more than the smelly one. Much, much bigger. Open your mind, open your mind, open your mind. International, okay? Plot for 8-10 years. No, you don't release little pieces of the surprise like that, okay? But anyway, it has gotten so bad. Now that they see full masks off, they see that everything we said is correct, that these people don't give a fuck about any of them. Everything they promised is bullshit. They're doing the opposite of everything they promised, to the point that their own supporters are like, what is happening? This is not what we asked for. We wanted cheaper eggs and cheaper gas, and you're talking about we need to conquer Panama and Canada? Like, what the fuck is happening? You've got these folks that are telling them, yeah, you're horrible workers. We're not going to hire you for shit. We're going to import work, and you can go work in the fields. Like, we're going to go to war with half the world because we need to for national security. I mean, Ruski security. I mean, national security. To the point where now even the Reds are like, someone save us from ourselves. That was very important. That needed to happen. And yes, I know there will be hardcore worshipers forever. But in terms of most of them, yeah, they felt it. It affected them. It affected their bonus, their job, their hiring, their firing, their overtime, their taxes, and not in the positive way they thought it was, all in the negative. So yeah, a lot of them are asking someone to save them. They were hoping that we were going to save them. They would have complained about it, but they were hoping for it because that's how they are. And since it didn't happen, now they have to publicly make a plea. You understand? I mean, that's just one piece of it. But like I said, the psychological part of this whole thing is just beautiful.
Good morning, Blue Lulus. I hope your coffee is strong and your will is steadfast today, because as usual, I feel like I say this every day, but today again, everything feels very crazy. News is emerging saying that the European Union is now officially looking into ways in which they can seek legal action against Dark Batman because of the ways that he has been fiddling and messing with their costume contests in several of their different nations. What this will mean in terms of consequences for him is unclear right now, but it sounds like they're at least willing to say the quiet part out loud. I've also noticed that there's a lot more people in the mainstream media that are coming out and saying, hey, I'm looking at everything that's happening, and are you sure? I know that you only have 11 days left, but you are the most powerful person in the world, Maverick, and this would be unusual, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You're not going to do anything? Anything? And it's frustrating to me that it's taken this long for anybody to say anything. But he's right. Like, the guy on MSNBC who came out and said this was 100% correct. It is not over officially until this day. So if there's something that could be done, it needs to be done, because everybody in the entire world is watching us and they're terrified. Can you imagine being one of the people to the north of us, or in the green place, or in Panama, and just having this guy come out and like make these accusations all willy-nilly, and you're just sitting there like, I didn't have anything to do with this, I didn't choose this, I didn't put my tallies in for this, and now they are potentially going to be subject to his will, this megalomaniacal crazy person's will, because our team is so focused on decorum and looking sweet and nice and well behaved. I've been thinking a lot about this. Like, why was I so sure that something was going to happen? Like, what made me believe that? Obviously the data, but there were so many people who were like, yeah, I see that, but I don't think they're going to do it. Why did I think that they were going to do it? The biggest reason was because of all the silence, right? Like, in the event that they're not going to do anything, then they just ghosted us. So you really just hung up your hat afterwards, walked away. You spent literally years, the better part of a decade, telling us that the Joker was a huge risk to everything, our entire way of life. And then November 7th comes around and you guys are just like, okay, well, let's live another day. I don't want to look like them. Like, I don't know. Nothing feels like it makes sense to me right now. I want so badly to believe that on Monday we're going to hear something. I really do. I want to. But I don't know. I do not know anymore. And it just feels like they have imposter syndrome. It feels like they don't realize that they have the power here, because Lord knows if the shoe were on the other foot, the Team Joker, I almost said the wrong word, Team Joker would use every single possible tool in their toolbox. They would invent new tools in their toolbox to keep this from happening. And we're over here just like not even using the ones we already have, and it's so frustrating. Like, remember who you are. I want a Mufasa to come out of the sky and talk to Joe Biden, and I want him to say that. Remember who you are. Come on. But I don't know. I want to have faith. I'm trying to have faith, but I've also said in the past that we shouldn't have the faith that we hold in our spiritual guides and spiritual leaders and God and all the other people and whoever you believe in. I've always felt that you shouldn't have faith in your political leaders, because that would make us like them. I want to see something. I need to see some action. I need a glimmer of hope. I just need them to say it. Be like, hey, everything you're saying is completely nuts and you can't do that. And they won't even do that. They stopped fighting for all intents and purposes. And in the event that the three-letter agencies and our legislative agencies are completely separate from each other and nobody's supposed to communicate, and that separation is good, well, great. Then that means the legislative branch should be able to come out and say the truth, right? They should be able to say, this is crazy. We can't do this. You won't do this. And they won't. They're all silent. And maybe they're afraid. Maybe they don't want a target on their back in the event that he is there in, I don't know, 11 days time. I understand that. I want safety for my family as well. But like, nobody voted me into this position, and I'm still willing to say, this is nuts. This is not okay. Why aren't they? They're like, oh, this sucks. We're gonna keep fighting. Well, then fight. What's your plan? Don't just hypothetically say that you're gonna do something. What's the plan, bro? You're the leader. You're in charge. You're leading the line. What's the plan? Nothing. Just crickets. Just like, oh, but look, I'm not like them. And then like Adam Schiff, he brought that dude there and said nothing. As my friend Recognizant said, this was the first costume contest checkmarking that didn't have any objections since 1989. That was the year that I was born, and I have to carry around ibuprofen in my purse every day. That was a long time ago. Like, so I don't know. I don't know, y'all. How are you feeling today? Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give me that comment and a follow. Join a Blue clan. It's nice and cozy over here for the most part. And as always, keep your eyes up, keep your feet on the ground. I'll see you next time.
I did miss that, so thank you to my friend for sending that to me. So yes, so on the 6th, one of the House committees did file a 78-page report on J6 2021, all right? And again, not a big splash, but if you go check out the documents on the government website, January 6th, in fact, you know what, I'll link her videos, okay? So you can go see. Massive report. That by itself, not so sexy, okay? Except for the DOJ is going to be releasing pieces of a report about a certain smelly one regarding the same day. And, you know, his role in it. And probably other people's roles in it that are currently sitting in seats over there. And other people, you know, Blue Bacon that was leaking information to some of the visitors, the very peaceful visitors that were there that day. So, again, we don't know which parts of the DOJ report is coming out, but okay, are we seeing the parallels yet? Are you seeing the edges of the net come up yet? Are you seeing why it couldn't be Team Blue to do this? Now, and I'm going to put this video in the caption as well, what I also missed was I knew Miss Ma'am was going to be flying to Europe and hitting up Germany and Bahrain and Singapore. So, I mean, not Europe for that one, but you know what I mean. But what I missed was a long list of calls to different leaders, particularly a lot of them in Europe. The ones for like France and Germany stood out to me. But there was a whole list of them, and then she's going to be over there next week leading up to, I think from what, the 15th to the 17th, unless that changed. And what's France and Germany saying right now? Are they saying they want to ban a certain person's app from their countries? Are they saying they have evidence of someone doing EI? Are they saying that they have proof that he was using his platform to do the EI? And they're saying that he also had plans to do it in their countries, which means he was doing an awful lot of talking. And like I said in the videos last night where I got real excited, you know, he told someone. He walked right into that fucking trap. He got so bold, he ran right over there and went to all these different countries and was like, hey, see what I did over there? See my product over there? See how that worked? I could do it for you too. I could make sure you win. I got you. Just all you have to do is kiss the ring and I'll give you the money and the product. He ran his mouth. So yeah, so they have information of what he did and what he was planning to do to repeat in other countries. And again, like I said yesterday, isn't it interesting how by making the situation so easy for them over here, they thought it was so clean that they could just run around the world and do the same thing. It's almost like the trap worked. Almost. I mean, I guess we'll find out, but hang in there, y'all.
So in the comments section, I'm going to put a link to a TikTok video that it's just too long for, it's like almost 5 minutes or whatever, and I can't really share. I shared it, but that doesn't really direct you to it, and I can't stitch it or whatever. But this video had so much detail that I had to watch it twice, and about halfway through I stopped and all I could think is, oh my God, Elon's about to go to prison. Like, you know, remember Elon being like, if Trump loses, I'm going to go to prison. This video is a little difficult to follow because it's so much information, but it says a lot. It's probably the most important video on the internet right now.
Good morning, Blue Lulus. Happy Friday. I've got some lighting assistance from this car parked in front of me today. Let's see how long that lasts. I hope your coffee is strong and your will is steadfast today. An appellate court ruled that indeed the report that was made by Jack Smith regarding the Kager from 4 Januaries ago will be released as soon as Sunday. It will be volume 1 of this report, not volume 2, because volume 1 concerns solely the Joker, where the other 2 are still active cases. But the volume 2 will be released to our legislative branch. Additionally, the highest basketball court in on the land ruled in a 4-5 decision that indeed the sentencing for the Joker will continue today. Justice Roberts and Justice Comey Barrett were the 2 on the conservative side that decided to go with the side of justice, so good for them. I watched a video from a creator named Ria, R-I-A. I will tag her in the comments, and she was looking into why he was trying so hard to have the sentencing postponed when presumably he's not going to jail. The judge already said that. Why would he be working so hard when maybe he's only going to get a slap on the wrist and potentially a fine he'll never pay? But it turns out that once you've been sentenced for one of those F words, you have to submit your DNA into a criminal database. And that's likely why he's trying so hard to keep it from happening. Is Katie Johnson going to get some justice? Oh, I hope so. I hope so. And God knows who else. The UN and NATO have their big boy pants on, and they're making moves both against Dark Batman and against the Joker. And they announced yesterday that they will officially be taking over the airstrike and air security operations in the country of Poland, because they do not trust the Joker's alliances with Thanos and the Cold Country, and they want to ensure that Poland is protected by people who actually want them protected. And so as of this day, they will be taking over our air security in that area. The Cold Country came out and said that they don't believe that we should be able to have the green place, and they said that they will be working to protect it in the event that the Joker wants to take it. And I don't know what to think of that. Joker Jr. was in the green place just for a couple of hours the day before yesterday, before he was promptly told to leave because he is not a Gotham City official. They have no reason to be negotiating with him, and the reason why he was there was because he was trying to convince those people that there was actually a huge conglomerate of Team Joker folks in the green place that would love if we just took it over. And he did this by finding indigent people on the street and offering them money to demonstrate wearing their stupid red hats. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. And they were like, dude, can you get out of here? And he's like, oh, nobody likes me. I did not have Greenlandian hobos on my bingo card, but 2025. And then lastly, our wonderful leader of Gotham City, Jimmy Carter, was laid to rest yesterday. And I'm sure the body language expert creators are having a field day with that fascinating seating arrangement that they had going on. The Joker was sitting next to our smooth operator-in-chief, and they appeared to be very, very chummy. All the while, the former and presumably soon-to-be First Lady was sitting in the corner, staring off into space like, I'm not really here. I'm not really here. When the Joker entered, he saw his former Vice Penguin. I can't think of a nickname for him. Who's a villain who came around and saw the light? I can't think of any superheroes. The only person I can think of is Luke from Halloween Town. But I don't know if that fits. That Luke Duke, he's such a wiener. Maybe it fits. Leave it in! Leave it in! But he stood up and he shook hands with the Joker, and his wife said, no thank you please. She just bowed her head and kept sitting down. It was like, no, not after what you did to my baby. No sir. He might be interested in shaking your hands, but I'm not. And you know what, Karen, I'm with you. I would be the exact same way. So good for you. Good for you, Karen. Our former leader of Gotham City was beautifully eulogized by Wonder Woman and the Maverick. And when the Maverick was talking in his eulogy, he said, you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to sit by idly and watch people abuse their power. And you could literally see, right here in the Joker, you know, when you get caught doing something bad and you get that, twinge in your stomach and it, tightens up. You could see that happen to him. He went, and it sparks joy. I encourage you to watch it. It's on Courier. And Wonder Woman and Doug just exchanged the most adorable little loving, encouraging glances, and I just love them. It had been reported that the Wonder Woman was planning on going to different countries during her last week in the Casablanca. She was going to go to Bahrain, Singapore, and Germany, and nobody knew why. But I guess that trip has been postponed, well, not really postponed, but canceled, due to the fact that California is experiencing such trauma and hardship, and she's going to stay here and help her home state. One of our fellow Blue Lulus, Kate the Sarge, has been evacuated from her home there in California, and she let me know yesterday that it's possible that she could be evacuated again. So if you have time to send her some love, please do that. Go to her page, share her stuff so that it's more prevalent and viewable on the FYP, because anything that you can do to help, I'm sure would be really wonderful to her. My thoughts and light and hope and prayers for rain are with everybody in the state of California. No matter what happens today, tomorrow, or the next day, I want you guys to know that you are my silver lining. I love you so much, and I am so happy that you're here. I hope you have the best day available to you. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like, comment, and a follow. Join our Blue Lulu clan. It's nice and cozy over here, and as always, keep your eyes up. Keep your feet on the ground. I'll see you next.
All right. What's everybody thinking? So, since the Supreme Court basically came out and told Donnie Dumpster Fire that he's not going to get saved, that he's going to have to just deal with his sentence, what do we think the odds are that he's going to jail? I know Marshawn said no jail time, but we also thought the Supreme Court would save him. So what do we think? Do we think Donnie Dumpster Fire is going to jail, or like, I don't think anything's going to happen as far as the other part, but I guess one never knows. But yeah, the Supreme Court, I thought for sure was gonna like fly in and wave their magic wand. Like my daughter always goes, magic, magic, boom! I think he thought that Justice Roberts was coming out and be like, magic, magic, boom! I don't know. But part of me is wondering if Donnie Dumpster Fire isn't going to big time prison. Or as they used to say on Office Space, F him in the ass prison,
November 6th and the movie Interstellar. Give me 3 minutes of your time. After the election, many of us came on here saying that we felt a shift, that we shifted into a different dimension, a different frequency, a higher level of being, that we woke up calm, that we woke up with a feeling that everything was going to be okay. 3 days ago, I started watching the movie Interstellar again. And for the last 2 months, I've been using a lot of sound bites on this app to go along with my posts from that movie, because the music in that movie is other dimensional. And I realized after watching this movie again and really understanding it from a perspective of feeling like I shifted after the election, that it all clicked. That the ghost that Matthew McConaughey's daughter, Murph, thought she had in her room was really her father in another dimension, in another time. And how at the end of that movie, he talks about how the future humans, the future thems, had created a third dimensional reality inside of a fifth dimension to understand it, to cope, to progress. And then it clicked. That's how I feel. That I shifted after that day. And that the chaos and the minutia of all that we're seeing transpire in this third dimensional world is happening outside of the actual dimension that we are existing in. And that is why it has been so difficult, because we're being tugged back and forth between these dimensions, trying to relay messages to people that we feel, because we feel like we live in a different dimension now, but that we are tied and in some ways still bound to this reality before that day. From that day on, my inhibitions, my worries, my fears about what it is people might perceive of me have dissolved. There's no more fear. There's no more boundaries. There's no more obstacles to wanting to be the dreamer and be the dreamer I always was from a little boy and forgot about for so many years. The shift that happened after the election wasn't just about the fact that many of us believe with our hearts that man will not be president. It's because we feel like we're perceiving it from a dimension where that never happens. Sharing and communicating how you feel, your intuition, and what you feel you have been thrust into, that is a gift that has been given to all of us. Keep sharing. Keep existing and striving to live in a more fulfilled realm of existence. Peace out.
It is official. DJT is now a convicted felon. Unfortunately, he will not serve jail time. The judge overseeing the case essentially said that he is getting a slap on the wrist. He has sentenced him to a unconditional discharge, unconditional release. He will go down on record as a convicted felon. He will lose all kinds of rights, but essentially he won't have to face any punishment. Things he will not be able to do. He will not be able to vote. He cannot hold public office on a local and state level. And yet he can still be the most powerful man in the world. Yeah, make that one make sense. He cannot own a gun. He is not able to go for certain jobs in law enforcement, education, healthcare. He cannot have access to public benefits like SNAP. He cannot travel to certain countries, and he cannot serve. All things that DJT was never in a position to have anyways. So what do I think? I think this sends a terrible message. The message this sends is that if you are powerful enough, if you are rich enough, you can break the law and essentially get away with it. I think we all know if this was anybody else, even if they were running for president, the crime would be so much more severe. But for some reason, they cannot quit this guy. They just can't quit him. And you already know the world is laughing at us. What a horrible look. It's bad enough that our society is already in eat the rich mode. All this does is fan those flames. But there you go. He's a convicted felon. And the thing about an unconditional release or discharge is that if he does get arrested again, they can go back to this and tack on more time to whatever other things he'll be convicted of. So if that makes you happy, cool. But for me, this is a horrible message to send to people right now. The rich and powerful can do whatever they want in this country. That, my friends, is what a restrictive oligarchy looks like. You want me to read it? Let's read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's super long and I don't have time, but I'll read some of it. He starts off by saying, the radical blue team have lost another pathetic, un-American witch hunt. Pause. He needs to stop saying that. The blue team got out of the way. They confirmed him. No objections, remember? So him saying that makes him look even crazier. Against your 45th and 47th president, me. I like that he paused and went, me. I was given unconditional discharge. As all legal scholars and experts have said, there is no case. There was never a case. And this whole scam fully deserves to be dismissed. Jesus Christ. The real jury, the American people, have spoken by picking him with an overwhelming mandate in one of the most consequential contests in history. As the American people have seen, this case had no crime, no damages, no proof, no facts, no law. Only a highly conflicted judge, a star witness who is a disbarred, disgraced, and criminal EI. He keeps telling on himself. Today's events was a despicable charade, and now that it's over, we will appeal, which has no merit, and restore the trust of Americans and our once great system of justice. Mega! It's funny to me. This man essentially got a slap on the wrist, and for some reason, he's still losing his mind. You're about to be sworn in 10 days. You won't face jail time. Why is he still going crazy? Does being called a convicted felon hurt him that much? Well, in that case, from now on, it will be convicted felon DJT. But once again, listen to what he said. No crime, no damages, no proof, no facts, no law. And he says the star witness committed EI. He keeps telling on himself. It's all a projection. Keep that in mind.
Thank you to my friend for sending this to me. For those of you who are waiting for the official on TV, Canada has EI information. Remember, I said Canada's on the list. We just haven't seen it official, but Canadians in my comments were saying, oh no, we have information and we're going to release it soon. Check the link that's in the caption on this. So we can officially add Canada to that list.
This morning, we have some important information that we thought we should share with the media with regards to the election in 2024. There's been many people who have brought forward a tremendous amount of information to us about the election. A lot of it is, just people's opinions and thoughts about what had happened. And I intentionally did not come out and make any comments about any of this during the time leading up till now, because I felt that our democracy is important in this province. We need to be able to have confidence in the democratic process. We need to have confidence in the results. We need to have confidence in how business is conducted in this province by governments. And to that end, I didn't want to add into rumors or into conspiracy theories. I wanted to make sure that I dealt with facts, things that we could find, things that we could do research on. So since the election, we have had a group of people that have been looking into a number of things, a number of issues that have come up and that have been raised. And we felt it important at this point to share what we have found to date, but also to indicate that there is more work that still needs to be done with regards to this. We've heard many stories about, for example, non-Canadian citizens who have voted in this election. However, that's something that we can't prove, because obviously no one's going to be coming forward and putting up their hand saying, please have me eligible for a fine and put me in jail. So these are the types of things that are hard to follow up on in terms of it, which is one of the reasons why we'll have a recommendation associated with that as well. We found other cases where an individual went to vote and was told they couldn't vote because somebody had already voted. Somebody had already registered a vote in their name. Errors can be made. We understand those sort of things. Found another incident, for example, where an individual was registered as voting who said they didn't vote. Okay, once again, you don't know for sure how those things play out, but those are the kinds of things that we hear. But I think probably some of the more disturbing things that we have found is in particular in the riding of Surrey-Guildford. And Han Veer was our candidate here in Surrey-Guildford, and he's here to share a few words as well with regards to the work that he's been doing in terms of follow-up on the election. And in that particular riding, we found a case of a double vote, somebody who voted twice. We have found a case where there have been at least almost 24 ballots that were cast from people who are not registered or not currently, sorry, let me rephrase that, whose place of residence that was on Elections BC is not where they currently live. And so there's a follow-up that's needed to find out, just to make sure to know just where they did live. Did they live in the riding, or did they live outside of the riding and use a different address to be able to vote in the riding? One of the more serious issues we have found was associated with a care facility, a seniors home, where 21 mail-in ballots were cast. Mail-in ballots where the voting station was just 80 meters across the road from where this facility was located. And individuals in that facility have come forward with affidavits with regards to voting, regards to what happened associated with that. There's concern that these votes, that a third party has come in and been partaken and part of how these votes were cast and done. It is a serious concern that needs to be looked into with regards to an investigation. There are other issues that have come up around the whole process and what has gone on. For example, there was one individual, I just read about this morning, who just became a Canadian citizen 3 days before voting and was never asked whether or not they were a Canadian citizen when they voted. And to me, that's concerning, because the number one thing that Elections BC should be doing is to make sure that people who vote are Canadian citizens. That is the core of our democracy. That's the core of what we do. And so we're going to be making a number of recommendations, and I'm going to have Hanveer follow up and say some things after this. We're making a number of recommendations that need to be followed up on. And the first and foremost is to repeat our call for an independent review of the election process. What that independent review needs to look at is not just, these irregularities that we have found through the election process through digging. They need also to, quite frankly, to look at how the election was conducted by Elections BC. The fact that they are not focusing on making sure that there's Canadian citizenship for people that vote. That how can they follow up, and particularly for things like phone-in ballots and these types of things, to make sure that it is the actual person and that there is Canadian citizenship. The independent review also needs to look at the Elections Act and how the Election Act is set up and the priorities that are set up in the Election Act, and is there changes that are needed. Because after all, this current election that we just went through was acting on the Election Act of 2019, which was authored by David Eby. The whole process of this election, it rests on David Eby's shoulders when he was Attorney General in terms of what has come forward here. The next things that need to be looked at, so there's the three components of the independent review that needs to be looked at. We're making a recommendation that all photo ID that's issued by the British Columbia government should have a C on it if they are Canadian citizens. So that's your driver's license, your BC ID. And that's a way for Elections BC to make sure that people who vote are Canadian citizens. It's make sure to protect the integrity of the electoral process in British Columbia. And the last recommendation that we want to bring forward with this is we actually think there are many people who have voted who may not be Canadian citizens. We have heard of hundreds of these potential cases of issues. However, like I say, no one wants to come forward because they're worried about what may happen in terms of a fine or potential jail time. I think what I'd like to see is us to suspend the penalties of the Election Act for a 90-day period to allow for people to be able to come forward and tell us what has gone on, what happened, were they coerced to vote, what was the issues that may have happened. Allow this information to come forward without the penalties of the Election Act being applied. And the reason for this is, once again, to protect the integrity of the democratic process, to make sure that people can have confidence in our voting in British Columbia, to allow for Elections BC to be able to find the errors or the problems that have happened, to make sure that we can fix this so that elections going forward, people in this province can have full confidence that they are held, that they're conducted properly, and that there is nothing that goes on that shouldn't go on. We're in a situation now in British Columbia where whether it's leadership races or whatever the case may be, the rules are pretty lax in terms of whether Canadian citizenship. And we're about to see a federal leadership race going on, and who knows what those rules are going to be, whether it's going to be decided who the next Prime Minister is going to be by Canadian citizens or others in terms of leadership races. So there's a lot that needs to be looked at in this whole process of how we protect and how we support democracy and how democracy is undertaken in British Columbia. And so with that, I'd like to pass it over to Hanveer to share some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Rostad. As you know, I'm Hanveer Randhawa, so I ran for the election from Surrey Guildford, electoral riding as a candidate for Conservative Party of BC. So at the end of the election on October 19, there was a 103 vote lead, and with just a handful of votes after that, the lead was gone and I was trailing by 22 votes. So of course that raised reasonable concern. We asked for the voting list, the participation list from BC Elections, and BC Elections provided the list, but in quite a cumbersome manner. I asked for the list we asked for the list in categorized manner so we could see who has voted through mail-in ballots and who has voted through other alternative methods. But that was not provided to us. So with the support that we had at hand and with John Rusted's amazing support as well, we were able to conduct a review of who had voted in Surrey-Guildford riding and what contraventions possibly happened. So this particular lodge did stick out because there were 21 mail-in ballots which were casted from this lodge, and this lodge is literally across the street from the voting place, which is one of the schools. So that did raise further concerns. And under the section 109.01 of the Election Act, one individual can only assist another individual with the mail-in ballot package. So that raised a concern to us, but that also raises a bigger concern that this information was available to BC Elections, so why did not it raise a concern to them? But for us to conduct this review that we did, and we found 45 irregularities, contraventions, and the gap between the leading NDP candidate and myself is 22. So 45 irregularities we have found, possible irregularities at this point. So the gap is 22, and we are going to be bringing a petition in court shortly as well as to make the election in Surrey-Guildford invalid. Because the point at hand is that the justice must prevail and the democracy must be protected. The voices of these voters, whoever is voting for a reason. They want the right government, or they want their vote should be counted in a rightful manner. So this entire endeavor has not been easy, but we have finally, as Mr. Rusted has explained as well, there are 45 possible contraventions of the Election Act, and especially this lodge, as it did stick out. So we are asking BC Elections, and the complaint that you have a copy, they redacted, that we are asking BC Elections to do their thorough investigation into this. And also, if it does point to irregularities, then other institutions similarly to the same should also be looked into. So that is where we sit with this. And Mr. Rustad, if you have anything else to add.
So just to be clear, a complaint has been filed with Elections BC, and what we found in that facility, we have heard from people that have come forward and talked about similar issues with other facilities. And that to me is what is very concerning, because there may be a pattern. It's something that still needs to be investigated. We still need to be able to track down the work that's in there. We're going to continue doing the work that we can do to look at and to continue to follow up on this, but it's important now, I think, that Elections BC gets involved with its process, as well as the independent review, to be able to make sure that what is being done here is all revealed and all up and up, and that we can make sure with confidence going forward that our election process in British Columbia can be relied on and defended. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that the media may have. And I'll leave Brad to...
Let's just keep it orderly. We'll be here for a while, so we're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. Katie?
John, you mentioned the 21 votes at the care home, and you said affidavits from people in that care home. Can you detail what people in that care home said, what kind of concerns were raised, and why does it matter that they're across the street from a facility? Why can't they vote mail-in ballot if they want?
Of course, people have that right to be able to vote mail-in ballot. The issue is whether or not they're capable of doing that, and whether or not there was, an individual who participated in many people voting by mail. And so there's issues in terms of how that's brought forward. But in particular, the background or information that you have has the information that you're asking for. So I'd ask you to look for that.
And you came out on social media, and other party officials came out on social media saying that you accepted their election results. So why call it into question now? Is this feeding into more conspiracy theory type things on social media that tried to say the election was rigged?
One of the reasons I did not talk about any sort of issues associated with the election, and we accepted the election results of the day, is because we need to be able to have trust in Elections BC and in the process. And it can't just be based on rumors that create, potential concerns. So we wanted to make sure that we looked into this and we had actual data and hard information before we came forward with any sort of things. The reason for coming forward with this now is there's also a 90-day period from the time of the election before these sort of things can be filed. And so we've done the research and the work that we can, found what we have, and now are bringing it forward now at this time, which we feel is appropriate.
Justine?
Just first of all, some clarity. So you're taking this complaint to Elections BC, but are you going to the Supreme Court to seek to have this particular riding reviewed?
As the party of, as the Conservative Party of British Columbia, we are not taking this to court. However, Han Veer has made a decision to file within court, and so that's his right to be able to do that.
Okay, maybe you could explain why you're doing this and not the party. And
So basically, within 3 months from the contravention, you can bring a petition into court. As a candidate, you have the right to bring that petition to have the election declared invalid under Section 150. So right now, I'm a lawyer by profession, so I have decided to handle it on my own, the petition in court. So we are filing that in court, the petition, because the irregularities, of course, it takes time. It's not an easy job when you have 20,000 voters list presented to you without any indication as to who voted how. So it does take a lot of time to, and of course, people are not that forthcoming to tell you they have voted wrongly. But at the end of the day, of course, we have the surfaced irregularities are 45, and the gap is 22, and there is usually a magic number test behind these petitions. So, but irrespective of a petition in court for this, more important is the democracy must be protected. And these people have had the faith in democracy. They vote, they take the time. I've been on ground knocking down doors 4 times in my riding. I can't let them down. So there's a lot of people in my riding as well asking me to take this further. So that's the step we are taking.
And then if I could just thank you.
Thank you.
Follow up, Mr. Russell. You said you were avoiding just feeding conspiracy theories. And you laid out the specifics of what you think went wrong here. But you then also said, well, David Eby might be responsible for this because he was the AG at the time. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on what specifically you think Mr. Eby might have done that led to irregularities in this.
So, Ned, you can go back and look at the changes in the 2019 in terms of the Election Act that were brought forward, which created the opportunity to be able to vote from anywhere in the province. It created a number of things that sort of allowed for less scrutiny from Elections BC in terms of the electoral process. And so my perspective on this is that the person that holds the pen is ultimately responsible for the legislation that is being enacted. And so that's why I raised that issue.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
So you talk about the laws, you talk about the way this election was handled. Obviously the recount process was long, but what specifically changes would you like to see made to the Elections Act if there's something to be found there? You talked about 2019, 2021, those changes, you talked about voting from anywhere. Would you like to see that, rescinded, or what changes would you like to see made to that?
What I would like to see in British Columbia is to be assured that the people in British Columbia know that it's only Canadian citizens who are voting, that there is nothing going on behind the scenes in terms of coercing or anything else that could potentially have happened in terms of gathering votes, and make sure that, like I say, the democratic process in this province is protected. That's what is most important, so that people have confidence in a government that is elected.
And then as a follow-up, this complaint, I know it's broad as well, but it's also mostly focused on Surrey Guildford in terms of the specifics. Are there any other ridings or any other places where you have these types of concerns, and will you be bringing forward any other issues to Elections BC?
So there are other ridings that certainly we have had a number of things that have come forward. There's no question. And in some cases, those are very, very significant. It's a lot of work to be able to track down this sort of stuff, to be able to bring it forward from a factual perspective, which is why we're not bringing that stuff forward at this point. But we are going to continue with the investigation. But this is also why it's very important to look and to have the penalties under the Election Act suspended for a period of time to allow for these things to come forward, so that we can bring it forward and fix these problems without there being those sort of consequences, so people can have that opportunity to come forward and do the right thing and talk about just what's happened here.
You're up.
You mentioned that Premier David Eby was an author to a lot of the sweeping changes that took place this time around. But at what point do you think that BC elections should be responsible for some of the irregularities and discrepancies that are being found, including, we know about the 861 ballot that wasn't counted, and also other discrepancies over 60 write-ins? When do you start to put them in question?
It's one of the reasons why when I call for an independent review, it's not just a review of the election and what it went on during this election, but a review, an independent review of Elections BC itself, of the way it conducted the election, to be able to make sure that if there are problems and issues, and I've heard many stories, and these are things that are just stories, so I'm reluctant to come forward with and talk about them without actually having the evidence on it. But many stories in terms of some of the way that Elections BC had conducted this election. So I think it's important that there is an independent review, not just of the election, but of Elections BC and of the Elections Act, to look at strengthening the electoral process in British Columbia.
Some of those, some of those changes included tabulators. There are stories of ballots being taken home. There's lots of concerns over phone theft. I haven't heard you mention any of those things. Are those going to be issues you are also calling into question as well?
Those are all things that my hope is, as part of the independent review, will come forward. And then I'm assuming, and maybe I shouldn't assume, but I would request that an independent review has an opportunity for the public to be able to come forward with their concerns and issues, and to be able to do the follow-up and to look into it. That's the key of having an independent review that looks at these things, which is why the review should not just be done internally by Elections BC or through an all-party committee or any of that type of process. That's why this needs to be independent, put out there, so that people can have full confidence in terms of what a review could potentially reveal.
Hi, John.
Rob?
I wanted to get my head around it. Are you alleging, or your party alleging, or you're alleging that, like, who are you alleging was involved in bad or inappropriate or fraudulent behavior? Are you alleging Elections BC made mistakes? Is it the NDP? Is it Gary Begg in that riding? Who are these allegations directed towards?
So it's obviously it's difficult to say exactly, which is one of the reasons why there needs to be the independent review to look at just who may have been involved. What we do know is that there have been donations made to the NDP. There is obviously relationships there that connect this, but whether or not that has part of it, that's something that needs to be determined either through that independent process or through some other process.
And then by way of follow-up, I'm just trying to get my head around what's going forward. You called for these reviews. And then in terms of court challenges, correct me if I'm wrong, but the party could bring a court challenge by the 19th or 20th, but they've chosen not to. Honveer has decided to bring us the same court challenge on his own behalf. The effect of that, if it's successful, would be a by-election in that riding, I guess. And you've said there's 45 irregularities you've identified, which would be enough to trigger the by-election. Assuming that's all correct, why is the party not sort of putting its money where its mouth, so to speak, if it feels like there are these issues?
Yeah, there's a lot of work that the party still needs to be involved in and do, but with regards to the court process, the legal process, we felt that the best process forward was for the party to not be involved in that legal challenge. So it's just a decision that the party has made.
But Honveer is bringing that court challenge.
That's, you want to?
Yes, that's a very good question. So I am bringing forward that court challenge because this effort is bind in two ways. Court challenge brings the possibility of a by-election to come forward if the court finds that contraventions to stand and our number of contraventions are over what was the difference between the votes. And at the same time, all these efforts are in hand with the party's efforts of bringing a bigger picture to light, which is that the democracy must prevail. We need to make sure that these things don't go on going forward, that if somebody's voting, their vote should matter, because when there are contraventions as such, then we have issues as to other people feeling discouraged to vote. So this is there are two things here. So one, yes, as a lawyer, I'm bringing it forward on my own, the petition, with the parties' assistance. But at the same time, parties also taking the actions in the background to bring the bigger picture to light, yes. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna do 3 more.
Mr. Rusted, Happy New Year, both of you. Just wondering, as you know, federally, foreign interference issues have been identified, and the international student aspect in terms of non-residents were implicated, at least in one by-election in Ontario. Do you see any of that kind of pattern, or do you have that concern here?
We have some concerns about that for sure. It's one of the reasons why there needs to be this independent look at this, and it's also one of the reasons why we want to suspend the penalties associated with the Elections Act so that we can gather this information and get this stuff brought forward and fix the problem as opposed to just going after individuals through an act. I mean, the goal here is to make sure that we enhance and protect our democracy and our democratic process in British Columbia.
Question for you. You are a lawyer. Is this, and you're choosing to take this forward yourself, is this, that could be a positive or a negative, like you know it so well that you are in the weeds on it, or you are empowered in a way that someone else wouldn't be. So where does your legal training come into this? Like what's driving this? And it's a lot of work.
Yes, running an election is a lot of work. And once you do that, and if there is when you see if we would not have found the contraventions, this would be in vain, and there's no point in making a petition. But as far as my legal background goes, as a lawyer, you're just given the skills to present a point. But of course, this is not what I do for a living. This is the first time that I will be bringing a petition of this sort. But I am equipped with at least the court procedures. So it is something that I believe it should be done, not just for me or my writing or the party. It is a bigger picture at hand that at the end of the day, when I have knocked those doors and those people have voted, and if they're taking the time to vote, they believe in the system being correct. And we are not saying, or I'm not saying, who is wrong or right, but there are gaps here which should be looked into. And I'm hopeful that my petition and the court action on this would shed a better light on it. So going forward, at least, regardless of what the outcome would be, there could be better measures in the legislation which would address these gaps about mail-in ballot being taken so lightly. So that is where these kind of problems might not surface. So that's what my basic goal is, yeah.
Let the ketchup throwing begin, darling. Okay, so sentencing done. But I want to understand a couple of things about it, because yes, we knew like there wasn't going to be time, and for the people who are making content, we're like, well, nothing's going to happen, and we know it because nothing ever happens. Like, you're really not paying attention. You're not paying attention, but that's okay. That's okay. Anyway. So part of this conditional discharge, unconditional, whatever the hell it's called, he stays out of jail so long as he doesn't commit more crimes. Is it so long as he doesn't commit more crimes, or as long as he's not found guilty of other crimes? I feel like a legal eagle. Can one of y'all help me on that? That's a very, I mean, I won't say interesting, but look at who we're talking about. So that's why I say interesting. They can't operate without crime. So, and there's a whole lot of people around the world pointing criminal fingers at his co-buddy boyfriend. Anyway, and then I also hoid that him being sentenced in New York would mean he needs to put his DNA on file. Is that true? If that is true, I would understand another reason why he really doesn't want it. Like, yeah, he didn't want the sentencing because he kept telling his people if he's not sentenced, it doesn't count. Like, that was his thing. So now it's sentenced, so he can't say that anymore. But the DNA thing, I didn't know about. And I know that he didn't want to turn over DNA in any of his other cases. He fought that just like he fights everything. So, yeah, him going into the system, his DNA in the system, I feel like that's going to be interesting. Interesting day today.
So what do we do? Who, what, can do anything to stop him? Well, ideally, Joe Biden will stop him. We have approximately 2 weeks left, a little less than 2 weeks left. Donald Trump has proven to be a domestic and international terrorist based on the language he's using, based on what he's pledging to do, which is take over Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal with force. That is a war crime as defined by international law. So being that we have an incoming president that is threatening us and other countries alike, that he's going to invade and take over that territory, that makes him a domestic and an international terrorist. And he needs to be treated as such by Joe Biden and by our U.S. military. This should be enough to disqualify him from being president. If that's not enough to disqualify him, we have the 14th Amendment, which clearly states that any person that partakes in inciting an insurrection or carrying out an insurrection is automatically disqualified from being president. Between those two measures, Donald Trump cannot be president. It's up to Joe Biden and the Democrats and Congress whether they want to pursue this. But they literally have to act yesterday. Time is running out. And my message to Joe Biden, if he by chance sees this, is that the most peaceful outcome of this entire situation is that you handle it yourself with the U.S. military. We need a military operation to handle this domestic and international terrorist. We know what he plans on doing. He has said it openly, publicly, on multiple different occasions. What he's planning on doing is illegal. It is further dividing us against the world. It's not part of his campaign. It's not part of anything that we discussed during the debates, during the campaign, during the rallies. This is just something random that Donald Trump has decided out of the blue that he wants to do with no justification, totally unprovoked. He said he will use military force against Greenland and Panama to take control. He said he will use economic force against Canada to take control. Now, whether or not he's saying this to cover his own ass for not being able to deliver on his policies that he promised the American people, or whether this is something that he truly is going to do, that's irrelevant. The words have been said. He has said what he plans on doing, and we must take him for his word, because the risk of not taking him for his word and just kind of shoving this under the table and being like, oh, this is just Trump being Trump. What if it's true? Joe Biden, I'm asking you, what if it's true? What if when he takes over as president, he invades Greenland with force? He invades Panama with force. He uses economic pressure to invade Canada by means of taking over these territories. That would mean that NATO would protect these three countries from us. We would be the aggressor, which means that it would be like Russia invading Ukraine, and the United States would be like Russia. So it makes us a target. Donald Trump is making the United States a target for retaliation measures. He is weakening our national security. He's posing a threat to our national security. And it's totally uncalled for. It's not necessary. Nobody asked for this. We do not deserve this. And so, President Biden, I'm asking you to act. Because if you fail to act, you're leaving it up to the people. And if you leave it up to the people, I can guarantee you that upon reflection, you would have wished that you would have acted. So, with the little time you have left, I strongly encourage you to act and take care of this situation before it's out of your hands and it's in the people's hands.
Darling, no. Today is not the day to be discouraged. Why? I'm seeing the notes in my comments. I've got a couple messages. Folks are feeling a little low on the hopium today, and I'm not sure why, because I'm not feeling it. So, let me share. Is it because of the TikTok thing? Is that what it is? Or is it the sentencing? Like, let's clear all that up, okay? The TikTok thing. Don't worry about that right now. Is it harrowing? Yes. And I'm not going to pretend that I know what the final dice roll in that is going to be, but know that we are working to figure out a way to connect with each other and keep the information flowing. So the creators that are like on this, okay, just follow us where you can. Tubi Play, Sky is Blue, I know. And we'll keep working on this while we figure out what's happening with that, okay? They're not going to shut us up or close us out. We will figure it out, okay? So that's number one. Number two, the sentencing. Come on, that wasn't a surprise. We knew it was going to go that way. The judge said it was going to go that way. Don't be like distracted, distraught, or anything by that. What you needed to take away from that was that A, his DNA is going in the system, which he did not want, and you know there's a reason. But the other thing that's important here, aside from the convictions being finalized in the minds of his own followers, is he's supposed to keep his nose clean. No further, criminal whatever. And that's like telling a fish to stop swimming in water. So, and then when you add that to the DOJ, the Jack Smith report is going to be released. The DOJ is going to release it, I believe they said before Sunday. So if it's not already out, probably tomorrow. So we'll see what's in that. That's going to be a can of worms for sure. And while it might be about J621, I have a feeling it will have some parallels. Otherwise, why would they be looking for the pipe water and offering $500,000 for that sort of thing? Okay, like you guys got to keep following the little pieces here because it's not going to be a big show until the end. We are trying to land a plane that is on fire. Okay. And I can't promise you anything. I can't guarantee anything in terms of ending, but I can say that we're the group of people that are actually trying to take control and still land this bitch instead of crying in the back in the fetal position with our eyes closed. We won't know until the rubber actually touches the road if we hit or miss, but at least we are trying to save everyone. And that does count for something. So be encouraged by that. All right. If nothing else, being on the right side does count for something. We've got, another National Security Committee meeting, hearing, whatever, on the 17th coming up. Okay, the 19th, I know that's by the skin of the teeth, but there's an important report/deadline that hits that day that is pertinent to some of those timelines we've been looking at. Speaking of the timelines, Those are projections, guys. They're not promises. So I don't want you to look at those projection timelines and go, oh, Empress said by this day this is happening and that's not what happened. You guys know I don't do that. So don't. I have 3 kids. Don't do that. They try to do that to me too. You said. No, I didn't. Okay? The only date you need to circle on the calendar is the 20th. Those breakdowns are so you can see what could be happening behind the scenes, because those are things you're not going to see in the news. They're not going to tell you those things, but that's how it would work in the back end. Ugh, those are my kids downstairs. They turned it up extra loud because it's Friday. Okay, anyway, it's not my kids, plural. That's the boy. Okay, there we go. Anyway, only the boy gets that loud. So yeah, pay attention to not just that, the things that are still coming out, but the overall attitudes, right? The shade. And remember that we are carrying that attitude across the board. We're dealing with all Mad Hatters, fake treats, and steeple people that way. The way the rest of the world is treating the co-boyfriends, which is shut up and go away. All right? We're laughing at you. No one respects them. No one. The only people that do are the bots that are here spreading that. And that's the other thing I want to remind you of. Half the folks you see arguing in comments are not real. Half the folks you see supporting these crazy things are not real. And if you're listening to mainstream bending over backwards to normalize shit like some dude in a diaper trying to secure the funds to negotiate the purchase of Panama instead of anything important that we care about, again, they are all on their own missions. Okay, they are owned by the people. They owned by the same thing. Mainstream media, the bots, it's all the same narrative. It's intentional. It's made that way. And it's made to make you discouraged and make you feel like it's coming from all angles and it's hopeless. And it has trapped a lot of people, but it doesn't have to trap you too. Okay? So, enjoy your Friday. Let's wait and see what's in that report. We're taking it one day at a time. Okay? We can only be encouraged in knowing that we are fighting for the right things and that all signs are pointing to something. All right? Is it really that outlandish? Like I said, the 2 options we have now are both out there. You are either looking at the rollover and takeover. You are looking at an entire party that's smiling, knowing that a regime is coming in and trying to gaslight us into believing that they're going to work on better life for the middle class. Like, you know, it just doesn't make sense. I know we don't have faith in our systems and our parties, but that sounds just slightly less likely than we're finally getting to take down this axis of I ran away, Ruski, Chinese takeout, and the folks that they've been connected to in trying to grow their power. Folks like the co-boyfriends and other key folks in other places where they messed with their tests, okay? The walls are closing in and you should be able to see it, okay? Focus on that and not what the bots in the mainstream are telling you, because they don't want you to focus on that, okay? And also pay attention to all these little incidents, all these fires, California, Texas, New York. I live in California. We're side-eyeing it. There are suspects in custody. You can't convince me that there's not something bigger to that, and it's not an intentional piece of getting everyone distracted and drained today, which happened. So just hang in, okay? Hang in. Not every day is going to be a fireworks day, but shit's about to get interesting.
Let's recap. France, Germany, the UK, Spain, Romania, Georgia, not the state, the country, and now Canada. Every single one of these countries experiencing the same thing all at once. I've linked the video below. Go watch it. Now, unlike the others, Canada hasn't named the perpetrator. All they do essentially is list facts proving that there were issues. But I'm pretty sure if they find a culprit, it will be exactly who we think it is. If anyone at this point in time still thinks this is all a coincidence, it's time to wake up. So go watch that video and come back to give me your thoughts. By the way, go check out my YouTube video where I talk about everything and where we go from here. Stay hopeful. Trust your gut. And no matter what happens, please know you are definitely not crazy.
Joe Biden is doubling down on his belief that both he or Kamala Harris could have beaten Trump. I think I could have beaten Trump, and I think Kamala could have beaten Trump. I thought it was important to unify the party. I don't want to be the one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. That's why I stepped aside, but I was confident she could win. Now, this is kind of reminding me of J. Ann Salzer. As some of you might remember, she was a renowned pollster who was kind of the gold standard, who has said over and over again that she still stands by the numbers she had put out. You know, she was completely off based on the results, and now she's saying she's retiring. I don't know, maybe she was correct and there was interference.
So today kind of sucked. Not only did Donnie Dumpster Fire not get held accountable again, like that, yes. Does it suck? Yes. And like, here's the thing, is that, like, I knew he wasn't going to. Like, I made a post last night where I was like, what's the chance? Ha ha ha. But I knew he wasn't going to get held accountable for shit. And I think people think I'm like always dead serious. The only time I was serious, like dead serious, was the whole when the Electoral College votes, like, were just MIA from the National Archives, like that whole debacle. Like, still don't know what the fuck is going on with that. Like, that was just fucking bizarre, okay? There's no other way to say that. Weird shit. Never seen it before. You know, that was still in my book one of the weirdest things that could have happened. And that was like the only thing that had changed and made me think that any of this shit was going to happen before January 6th. Like, that was what, for me, was what did it. Wasn't anything other than just, holy fuck, they don't have enough electors to certify this election. But, as per the usual, you know, Don the Con just skates right out of it like some sort of fucking, I don't know. He's like John Gotti. I don't know how else to say it. He's Teflon Don, just like John Gotti was. And then, tonight, I'm at work, and it already snowed about, I think the total from the other day was like 6 to 7 inches of snow, which for the Cincinnati area is a shit ton of snow. And then we're going to get like 2 to 4 on top of that, and they are freaking the fuck out. Like, it took me a fucking hour to drive home. It was just a day. It was a fucking day. Like, I had such high hopes for today. Nope. The other thing that kind of sucks too is that it's going to get to be like, I think it's going to be like 5 to 10 degrees outside overnight, which that's more our jam, is like the single digit temperature thing. But this snow shit, it's like, well, for us too, part of the issue was that it was ice. It wasn't even just snow. And our Cincinnati is not a good city for, like, for instance, Indianapolis and Columbus are relatively flat cities. So, like, when it snows there, is it a bitch? Sure. But not that big of a deal because everything's flat. Here, it's a big fucking deal because, like, the hillsides are like this. Okay? Not good. And do you think that they've heard of using sand in there? In the salt? No. Why would they want to do that? They could get so much farther in the city of Cincinnati where the hills are like this if they would just fucking use sand too. Nah. But, yeah. I was hoping I would have more to say tonight, but I'm tired. It took me forever to drive home. That took all of the rest of my spoons for the day, I guess. I don't know how else to say it, so.
All right, y'all. I am scouring these comments trying to figure out why some of y'all are feeling kind of like low today, because I'm not feeling it. I am like, so I'm trying to just respond to see what was in there. Some of y'all said you were a little discouraged by the Canadian EI, and I don't understand why. Like, I mean, yeah, EI is a bad thing, of course, but it's not a bad thing to have yet another country talking about this and joining the list of countries that have an issue. I shared a clip, but there's going to be some more information coming out that is specific to us that they have, okay? So this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And the other thing you need to realize is that their red party, or, you know, I'm in quote, they don't call it that, but, you know, their C party is not like ours. So when you see, like, in France and in Germany and in Canada, where the C party and the D party both come together and say, we don't like this shit, that is the norm in a lot of the other countries, all right? So when you see Canadian conservatives talking, that's not a bad thing, okay? It's not like our whole different brand and breed, okay? Their conservatives are like our blues, okay? Don't get me wrong, there are pockets of the crazies around the world, but generally speaking, that's pretty unique to us, all right? And that's why Putineska and First Boyfriend have been trying to fund other parties and give them that kind of momentum, because they don't have it. That's also why they're spreading the propaganda that conservatism is on the rise. It's not, okay? They're telling you that, and the bots are repeating it. But when you look at the parties in these other countries, they are telling First Boyfriend to kick rocks because they're not interested in Mad Hatter level stuff, okay? So that's not a bad thing. Some of y'all were like sad that Biden's doing his farewell speeches. That's part of it. Like, that administration is not continuing. So I don't know why you're like sad about that, other than the normal amount of sad at watching it end. But I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. So I don't know why you thought that was something. I saw someone saying that they are afraid that the letter agencies are just lying to the VP and no one's going to do anything, and they're just telling her that they are. And okay, that one, I'm very side-eyeing that one. That's a super stretch for a multitude of reasons. The top one being, like, I wouldn't say that everyone is, like, reporting to her specifically on this. I need you to reopen your mind. I think that's the other thing. A lot of you guys are focusing on the seat and the smelly one again, and you're forgetting that it's bigger than that. So the splashes, you have to pay attention to those other countries, because that's the side door they're going to kick in on, all right? It's not going to be the Dems going and shackling the smelly one. It's going to be something else, okay? So pay attention to the something else's, not what the Dems are saying or doing. Nothing is going to come from that direction. It can't. These other little bits and bobs and pieces, connected, all right? I know I'm not supposed to say it on here, but the FARs that are here and popping up in Texas and New York, there's a reason there's a push for a lot of distraction right now. You shouldn't let that discourage you. That should tell you something. Just like when too many bots immediately come into my comments, it tells me something. Don't forget, darling, there is a reason they are planning a party for the 19th, okay? There's some important stuff that's supposed to hit by then that could very well have an effect on the rest of his plans, and that's the reason why they put that party the day before. He wants his people there to protect him if the hammer drops. So like I said in the other video, this is going to be a nail biter, okay? It's going to go to the end. It's going to be uncomfortable. And some of you might not be able to hang on that long. I get it. But you know what I'm going to say. Don't come in my comments to talk about how you can't and you don't want to and it's so hard and you're giving up. I understand and I respect that. But again, my space is not the safe space for that. Get through this weekend because there's some interesting shit coming up. We got some more committees coming out. We got some more national security shit coming out, some more reports that are coming out, some more countries that are speaking out and talking about taking actions that will have consequences. And it's all going to tie in because this is bigger than the smelly one and just this one seat. So you got to keep that in mind every time you're just looking at that. And if you're going to hop in my comments, go, I don't care about the rest of the world. I just care about us here in Dumpty. Then you're also kind of part of the problem. Sorry.
I'm gonna leave you tonight with some homework, but some interesting homework. You're gonna wanna do it. Now watch the attached video to this description. But before you go, consider this. What are we always talking about on this channel, right? Decorum, how Democrats love decorum. They love to show some sort of respectability, politeness for the camera, for the nation. So when this creator goes through the videos, I want you to think about how Democrats are interacting with Trump. Are they interacting with Trump? And consider the fact that the Decorum National Party usually loves decorum. Do you see decorum in the clips? I did. From who? From former President Barack Obama. However, consider how other politicians are acting. Consider how President Joe Biden interacted. Consider how Vice President Kamala Harris acted. And rather, the question that I ask myself, for a party that loves decorum, what would be so significant and substantial that would make me act like Donald Trump does not exist? Note, there's not just Democrat politicians there, it's also Republicans, so take that into account as well. However, the party of decorum, do you see decorum here? That's your homework, because that's the crumbs. So fortunately, I prepared all of you for the sentencing today. I told you that heads of state, especially if you're from a Western country like the United States, do not go to prison. Why? This is not necessarily an issue just about the American justice system. It is a global precedent. So you can blame the justice system. However, it is a global precedent. Why? Because if you imprison a former head of states, that one gives a bad reputation to your country. The United States does not want that. Two, people can say that your former head of state went to prison. So really public relations. And in our situation, American exceptionalism. So in fact, there are people above the law. Even in international law and American justice, they take leverage of that. This is why I prepared you and I told you, he's not gonna see prison. Even if he does something that should send him to prison, he is not going to see prison. Why? Because he used to be the president of the United States. And sure, we can have conversation about changing this, but remember, there's a difference between a law that you want to occur and how it actually is. And first, we have to accept it as it is before we can actually transform it. So just remember that this is not the battle we wanted to win, because I told you, he's not going to go to prison. But what's the end goal that we want? Him not going into the presidency. That's our focus. So don't lose hope over this, because in general, they don't go to prison. I have a background in international law, so I know this. Terrible leaders don't go to prison. So let's not really think much about this. This is the rule of law. It's really unjust. However, our goal is in this. Our goal is for him to not go into the presidency lawfully. If a properly selected elector submits a vote for a constitutionally disqualified individual, it should still be counted. Now, this scholarly article by literal law professors, so much more advanced knowledge than me in law, because I'm non-lawyer. I have an advanced degree, but not a JD. And they wrote this article titled The Sweep and Force of Section 3. Now, thank you to the viewer who actually sent me this like a week or so back. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. I found it on my tabs. So if this was you, I apologize for not getting back to you, but this video is for you. Now, we're not going to talk about what could have been. Now we're going to talk about where we are. The fact that the electoral certification was certified, and they certified an illegitimate victor, Donald Trump. Illegitimate under my first pin video on the courts. Particularly the fact that on January 6th, through his inaction, let's look at how long it took Donald Trump to certify the 2020 election versus how long it took every other administration. Donald Trump took 14 hours and 48 minutes. And why I say Donald Trump was because it was his inaction that delayed the actual certification. Again, it's not a problem if it is through a lawful congressional objection, but it was what? An insurrection. Had they protested on any other day that wasn't a constitutional process, it would have just been a protest or a riot. But the certification is what made it an insurrection. It was the date, it was the process, it was constitutionally protected, and they should not have been there. But 14 hours and 48 minutes, that's how much they delayed the certification. That normally should take 30 minutes, 41 minutes, 22 minutes, 36 minutes, not 14 hours and 48 minutes. So through inaction, he can be applied under Amendment 14, Section 3 of the United States Constitution. And why would this trump over the democratic outcome, even if there is nothing fishy in there? It's because of the Article 6 Supremacy Clause. There is no provision in the United States Constitution that allows allows for supremacy to be subverted by anything else, including the branches, including you, me, including democracy. We are in a constitutional democracy. That democracy has to uphold supreme constitutionalism. So the Constitution challenged by anything else is null, is void, because there's no authority for anything else to be above the Constitution. Remember, even the Constitution is above international law. That is why international law cannot touch Americans. It has to be American courts. However, what now? Still, once those votes are counted, a disqualified candidate does not become president. You hear that? Because we're at this position right now where it was certified. So you're scared he's going to be president. Well, technically, if the law is upheld, because constitutional law is above the rule of law, criminal law, democracy, all of that stuff, once the votes are counted, a disqualified candidate does not become president. Why? Note that the Supreme Court did not overturn the Colorado case because there was no insurrection. They didn't touch that. What they said was jurisdiction. It didn't belong to the state, but the federal Congress in order to remove it. Which is debatable, however, let's not get into that. Because there's a difference between what type of law we want and what type of law exists. And we can change that, but it cannot change until we change it. And this is why that transparency and knowledge is important, because unless you know the true original blueprints of our governance and government, then you're over here accepting less than what you deserve, because that's what you were taught to accept. How do we know this? This is made explicit by the self-executing command of Section 3 of the 20th Amendment, which sets the constitutional terms for the president. And this is important because you ask yourself, well, what's next? And what's next really depends on whether or not there is foreign interference or fraud, right? Because if that comes into play, then you can use both. But we're gonna just remove that from our minds and just go to the disqualification clause. So if it is only challenged through the insurrection, right? Through the disqualification, if and only if there is no foreign interference, then we will transition into this reality. Again, still, once the votes are counted, a disqualified candidate does not become president, even if he has the most votes. These are from people with law degrees, not me. Now here, what it says in this paragraph is basically that for a second, J.D. Vance would become the president, because assuming there is no foreign interference. So he becomes president until Congress figures out who the next president is. So the only reality in which he could become president is in the reality where Congress chooses to remove Section 3's disability. Now, I don't think we'll get this far because I start to get stressed out given these solutions, but I really do believe that there will be substantial evidence that will help us in other avenues. However, within this reality of just insurrection, there are two paths for involuntarily removal from office, because he can always just resign. The first is impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors. I do not believe that would be successful, because the first one wasn't successful, so why would it be successful this time? It also seems to us possible that a president who is, by operation of the Constitution, legally disqualified from holding his office might be said to be unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office within the meaning of the 25th Amendment. Now, I know you're questioning, you're really frustrated. Why didn't it happen before? Remember originalism? If you don't remember, watch my second pinned video on my profile. The Griffin's case. Here, a Chief Justice of the United States basically argued that Amendment 14, Section 3 is not self-executing. Why? The core of Chase's argument was that if Section 3 were an immediately operative, self-executing constitutional rule of disqualification, it would have inconvenient consequences in the Reconstruction South, which means that you would not be capable of having rebels in office. So that would be unfair to the South. So if you want to blame someone for the fact that we didn't have any resolve before the actual election, it is the Griffin's case. It is, again, originalism. It is the courts being misaligned with their actual constitutional obedience. Because here he said, I'm not going to listen to the words. I'm not going to listen to textualism, because if I accept it as it is in the provision of the social contract, as I'm supposed to, through Federalist 78 through 83, which says that all laws should be made in construction with the Constitution, you shouldn't put your opinion against the Constitution, but, you know, justices have always held some sort of judicial immunity, but I digress. So now we're here where it already happened, the certification happened, so what's next? What's next within the rule of law is that he's not going to become president. Now that gets complicated depending on whether or not we have other things going for us, like FI, right? But in that reality, it gets more complicated as to what the procedures are, because if there's FI, then that means the ticket is compromised. If there is FI and disqualification, then that means JD can become the president if there were some sort of question, right? So we're really in uncharted territories. What I want you to remember is that the rule of law is not based on justice and fairness. I know we've been led to believe that, but it's based on law and order. What does this mean? For legal professionals, you cannot get justice and fairness without actually aligning with law and order, so following those regulations. What does this mean? Legal scholars are telling us, unless it is removed beforehand, an unqualified candidate can be positioned, and in fact, he can be certified as the winner, but he cannot become president. What does this mean in regards to our situation? The vice president has a legal background. What do you think? She's going to follow the legal status quo. That is what's positioned within traditional law of interpretation. So the reason why entities were really struggling as to who had authority in regards to disqualifying him is because there's no clarification. What they have is de jure. They're like, someone will figure it out, and it's their job, not my job. The legal status quo is just allowing for that confusion. But for our purpose, what that means is that hope is not lost, because what? We have the rule of law. We have supreme law. So we actually have substance that is focused on objective fact. So I hope this gave a little bit of hope, because while the rule of law can be frustrating because it's overly complicated, it works. The question isn't whether Donald Trump lost the election. The question is whether a victory is legitimate under constitutional supremacy. Note, I understand that there are some allegations of discrepancies and the counting. However, I myself, as a creator, do not put weight on that because there's not enough information to actually dictate a conclusion. See, the difference between the delusional MAGA is that they position that the election was stolen when there was not significant evidence that it was. Currently, there is investigations. However, we don't have information to say whether it was or wasn't. Even if it is possible that there is some evidence of some discrepancies, the question is it significant? So I'm not putting weight on this itself, but rather the legitimacy of any victory. Because if Article 6 of the United States Constitution tells us anything, it is that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. This means that you are incapable of challenging the Constitution unless we actually amend it. In this reality, the constitutional supremacy is capable of overruling democracy, because democracy is only possible derived from the United States Constitution. Once this legitimacy dissolves, then all of that is meaningless. And we know this per Federalist 78 through 83 of the Federalist Papers. Now, what is known per the January 6th report, which has its authority derived from Article 1 of the United States Constitution, is that the certification happened on January 7, 2021. A day too late, a day past the deadline of January 6, 2021. This means that as the Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump failed at the bare minimum level to use his resources as President and Commander-in-Chief to actually quell the chaos that resulted in the delay. Then there is evidence that this was willful, that this was intentional. And this is all full of that evidence and laws that were broken under his guidance. This means that former President Donald Trump failed to do his basic duty of adhering to his oath to the Constitution under Article 2. Before he enters on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath of affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Did he do that on January 6th? No, he did not. Had the certification happened on January 6th, I wouldn't have any weight, but it happened on January 7th. This means that he failed. This means that there is a remedy required, and in the courts delaying this case, it means that there is legitimacy questions to his victory. So the question isn't whether he won the election, but whether it's legitimate. Because in making him the president without any remedy as to whether or not he actually contributed or comforted in an insurrection per Amendment 14, Section 3, the disqualification clause, where no one who has taken an oath to protect and uphold the United States Constitution shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. At the bare minimum, former President Donald Trump comforted in the insurrection. Now, there are three possibilities as to how our Amendment 14, Section 3 can be executed. One is through the courts, a case which was delayed, of course, which means that the courts failed to actually satisfy their duty to uphold the United States Constitution. But also Article 1 of the Constitution also provides Congress with the capability to call forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union and suppress insurrections. They failed to do that, which means that another branch failed to uphold the social contract. And of course, the executive also fell on that day. That means all three branches failed. How do we know this? Federalist 9, written by Alexander Hamilton. The Union as a safeguard against domestic faction and insurrection. A firm union will be of the utmost moment to the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. Did former President Donald Trump quell an insurrection? No. So this means that we are not a great union because of former President Donald Trump. He failed to uphold his part of the social contract as the executive and commander-in-chief and president. This is a direct violation of Article 1 of the oath and of Article 6 supremacy clause. Because above democracy, above the public opinion, above the executive, above the judiciary, above the legislative is the people per the Constitution. Federalist 78, written by Alexander Hamilton, where the will of the legislator, which is Congress, declared in its law stands in opposition to that of the people declared in the Constitution, the judges ought to be governed by the latter rather than the former. They ought to regulate their decisions by the fundamental laws rather than by those not fundamental. Federalist 81, admit that the Constitution ought to be the standard of construction for the laws, and that wherever there is an evident opposition, the laws ought to give place to the Constitution. See, the worst thing that can happen, even if there is evidence of fraud, is that the courts will not want to take it seriously and will just say, hey, it's already done, we're not going to do anything about it. It's also questionable whether the disqualification case will go anywhere because obviously if he's president, it really beats the point. And as reality, it means that the courts failed its basic duty to uphold constitutionality above anything else. Upon wrongful judicial decision from the constitutional courts, its legitimacy, therefore authority over the states, dissolves. To say this is untrue is to say the courts do not derive its power from constitutional supremacy and authority. So if it dissolves because we replace constitutional authority with Trump supremacy, it means that it is no longer binding to the state government. A failure of the Supreme Court to expedite judicial decision on insurrection before January 20 deadline is to, through inaction or complacency, sacrifice constitutional supremacy for Trump supremacy. And the fascinating thing about this, the fascinating thing that I'm excited for is that in these realities, and either realities where they're incapable of actually finding a solution to the question of whether there are legitimacy questions because of the insurrection. This means that the legitimacy of the court falls apart. Why? All Article 3 of the Constitution tells us is that the Supreme Court justices are there for good behavior. What does that mean? Federalist 83, the true test of a just application of them is its conformity to the source from which they are derived. The reality is that our constitutional provisions does not allow to put forward the public opinion or even democracy above constitutional supremacy, and that's what Article 6 is for. Which means that the court should uphold constitutionality, not democracy or political processes that are not derived from constitutional power. Federalist 78, through the medium of the courts of justice, whose duty it must be to declare all acts contrary to the manifest voice of the Constitution void. Without this, all the reservations of particular rights or privileges would amount to nothing. Now, upon a Trump presidency and inauguration, this means that upon the overextension of his power over the states, for instance, mass deportation and tries to force California to adhere to it, California has the authority to reject the legitimacy and authority of the federal government because of this. Because there was no remedy. Federalist 78, until the people have by some authoritative act, that's Article 5, annulled or changed the established form, it is binding upon themselves collectively as well as individually, and no presumption or even knowledge of their sentiments can warrant their representatives in a departure from it prior to such act. Why? Would your vote be overturned? Because if you voted for Donald Trump, then you failed your basic responsibility as a U.S. citizen. You failed to uphold the United States Constitution. You failed to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Per the United States Citizens Almanac, the Constitution establishes the U.S. system of representative democracy and outlines the inherent principles of freedom, liberty, and opportunity to which all citizens are entitled. The continuity of the nation's unique freedoms depends on the support of its citizens. When the Constitution and its ideals are challenged, citizens must defend these principles against all adversaries. If you voted for Donald Trump, you did not vote for the Constitution. You voted for your own self-interest. You voted to replace constitutional supremacy for Trump supremacy. This is when courts should be capable of overriding your vote for constitutional authority to restore constitutional legitimacy. If it fails to do this, the exciting thing is that this serves as ultimate evidence that our courts are misaligned to their original intentions. Federalist 78. That inflexible and uniform adherence to the rights of the Constitution and of individuals which we perceive to be indispensable and the courts of justice can certainly not be expected from judges who hold their office by a temporary commission. The only reason they have life terms is because they're expected to be independent and in alignment with constitutional supremacy. Upon the reality that they do not resolve this legitimacy question, it means that we're capable of reforming the judiciary without the constitutional processes of the congressional action in order to restore the Constitution. This also means we can impeach those who decide against constitutional supremacy, because it means the judiciary project failed. It's not whether he lost, it's whether it's legitimate.
This morning, Donald Jackass Trump became officially sentenced as a 34-count convicted felon. This was a optically important thing to have happened, and under the circumstance of what's going on, it's brilliant the way it worked out. And I know people are a little upset because we wanted this big perp walk, little golden handcuffs around little tiny hands, and we didn't get it yet. But here's the beautiful thing. As they said in the process of this, Judge Merchan and the sentencing, the both sides, were in a way wanted it to happen. Trump's legal team can't fully appeal everything about this case that they wanted them to appeal because the cycle wasn't finished, because the sentencing wasn't finished. It wasn't completed, which is the same type of thing with the certification of the election. So now that the certification is done, remember when I was talking earlier in different videos and on my lives about the different laws that have been tweaked or changed or written since 2016, specifically pertaining to this type of activity and the prosecution and investigation of this type of activity. I was bringing that up to look at the big picture, and how it ties in with the Judge Merchan thing is simple. Donald Trump and his gang of merry red-hatted idiots have been going around for years saying that he gets basically there. He's never done anything wrong, and the ultimate proof of it, he has never been sentenced. He's got a clean record. It's not optically on his marquee of his Donald J. Trump. Now it is. Permanently. For the rest of his life. It's done as of this morning. So now where it stands is Trump's people are going to go all out and appeal every single thing about this case, trying to get it thrown out. But it stays on his record. The reason they're able to appeal it on different levels is because it's completed. The same thing with the certification of the that we know has tons of issues in it. I know people keep thinking of the timeline. I know people keep thinking of, we wanted this faster. Where's the incident? This person did something wrong. This person did. Jack Smith, Merrick Garland, they're all there. Jack Smith's reports of J6 are coming out. The in-depth reports any day now. So if you're going to look at the timeline of J20th of being a false deadline, remember, Executive Order 13843 dictates 45 days going to December 21st, another 45 days, which has the sanctions and punishments involved, which is right in front of us right at this very second. And there will be more punishments coming out, mark my words. And then 30 days after that, that the sitting president, President Immunity, Dark Brandon Joe Biden, will still be sitting in office up until his 30 days when he decides what to do about all the evidence that is brought to his attention before the 45, 45, and 30, and internationally. And what we do know internationally is there's already been reports released from Ukraine and other countries in reference to interference in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, when I keep saying sit back and look at the big picture and stop stressing out, I mean it. Everything is happening for a reason. And before you get upset with any of that because you don't quite understand why or how or the process or whatever, don't bring yourself down that rabbit hole and recognize one simple thing. Trump's biggest argument about his perfection and his innocence was taken away from him for the rest of his life this morning. And all of his people that used that same argument for the last 10 years, it was taken from them this morning too. That's progress. Now, it may be a little bit easier of a pill to swallow what's coming next on the test-taking side of the election side of the world, because all of the information that's about to come out about J6 and the reports and whatever is released for the documents. Remember, there are 2 other cases still going in the documents case, so they may not want to release all of that evidence right now, but they may release some. They are going to release most of the J6. That is going to tie in other people in different positions in government and will trigger legal action against them too. When I said this is just beginning, I'm not kidding. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. So please, take a step back, take a deep breath, and relax. Have faith that all of this is going to come together. And January 20th is kind of flexible. Just in case, do you think they did enough pre-game protection with the fences, with the armed forces, with all the security? With already J6 was a national emergency filed years ago to make sure there's enough resources. They're that prepared for J6. What do you think they're prepared for on J19 and J20? What do you think the investigations have turned up since 2016? We're about to find out. Calm down. Grab your popcorn and appreciate what's actually happening right now. This is history, and you want to soak in every little corner of it that you can without stress. Just recognize and repeat one simple thing. He's not in yet. Stay diligent, stay educated, and be kind. We are all in this together. We got to focus on the big picture, and it will all be clear very, very soon. Pay attention. My hawk hair tribute continues.
We have breaking news right now. Special Counsel Jack Smith has officially resigned from the Department of Justice, ending a tenure in which he became the first special prosecutor to ever prosecute a current or former president of the United States. Special Counsel Smith made this decision known in a new public filing filed with Judge Eileen Cannon in the Southern District of Florida. Specifically, the filing notes that Smith submitted his confidential report to Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, on January 7th, just a few days ago, and officially separated from the Department of Justice yesterday on January 10th. Special Counsel Smith was unable to complete the prosecution of Donald Trump either in D.C. for the insurrection-related charges or in Florida related to the classified documents case. While the cases against Donald Trump will not move forward, the cases against his co-defendants in Florida will still move forward pending a likely pardon from Donald Trump when he takes office. Now it is up to Merrick Garland whether or not to release the Jack Smith report, and it's likely that he will. Comment below your thoughts, spread the word, and as always, follow along to stay updated on all the news you need to know about more to.
We need to deal with reality. The Supreme Court ruled that Congress would have to create rules to how to apply the 14th Amendment. It's not going to happen. I disagree. Section 3 of Amendment 14 states that anyone that partakes in an insurrection or inciting an insurrection is immediately disqualified from running for president, from holding office. It is self-executing, which means that no additional votes from Congress are necessary. It means Donald Trump is ineligible to be president. So he can run for president. The Republicans chose him as their nominee. He won the primary. That's fine. He won the election. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you have an ineligible candidate. And so therefore, Kamala Harris becomes president. That's if we are honoring Amendment 14, Section 3 of the Constitution, which is the law. So the Republicans could have chose someone that was eligible, someone that didn't break the law. They could have ran Nikki Haley. They chose not to. That's on them. That's not our problem. And Joe Biden needs to enforce this.
So, did you see Vance in his pants' little post where he makes a joke about not going to his own inauguration because he'd rather go see like a college game or whatever? I know it's a joke, but darling, isn't he like the youngest person to get VP? He's like my age. So we were already talking about his face and his body language when they did the certification and how he had the oh shit face the whole time except for when folks were taking photos. But when folks weren't taking photos, his face was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And now he's joking about maybe not going to his own inauguration. Come on, y'all. If you are feeling something in the air and it is giving you apprehension, darling, it is not just you. It is in the air, and it is because things are cooking. I'm going to tag a video of one of my friends did. Thank you so much for doing it. He explains it so much better than I could. Why some of us weren't upset yesterday with the sentencing, because we knew it was going to go that way. And I just wanted to clarify, because, you know, with J6, I was one of the people who said it's not going to be Congress. It's not going to be them. But even I got swept up in hoping it was going to be them because it would feel so good to watch them stand up, right? Even though that wasn't going to be the play. And I knew it, but even I got swept up in it. So for the sentencing, I stuck to my guns and said, this is not going to be the thing. So anyone hoping, watching, and thinking that they're going to cuff him up into... No, they weren't. And it's not because he just gets away with everything. It's because we're looking at a bigger, much bigger picture. It is not just about keeping him out of the seat. It is about this alliance of tech bros that have aligned themselves with Ruski, I Ran Away, and Chinese Takeout. All right, that are trying to do a coordinated thing. The smelly one is a stooge. He's a Trojan horse. All right, he's bait. That's why he stays in the trap, because he's the bait. The sentencing was just as important to what's going on as the certification was. All right? Just as important. And I know it makes us uncomfortable. And for those of you who are going to hop in the comments and go, do they know it needs to happen soon? There's only 9 days. There's only 8 days. There's only... Like, I don't know why y'all hop in the comments and say that. I think most of y'all are bots that say that. Yes, we know it's coming up. What do you want me to do? You want me to call the three-letter agencies and be like, excuse me, user number 2458 says hurry up. You have 30 minutes in case you didn't know. Like, come on. Listen to me, darling. That J6 report that the House just released from 620 J621, okay, almost 900 pages. Lots of information in there, and it clearly lays out who's responsible. Okay, part of dude's sentencing, remember, he's not supposed to get his hands dirty, no more crimes, no more convictions, that sort of thing, okay? The Jack Smith report is being released this weekend, all right? And there's an upcoming national security discussion that's on for the 17th, I believe. Now, go watch my friend's video, because like I said, he lays it out much cleaner than I can. But these documents are showing names, lines, you know, things to track as they've been followed for years leading up to now. And then you add that to the sanctions we're seeing, the fact that we know that reports are being reviewed by certain key people. And yes, the deadlines to come up with resolutions come real close, but that's why dude has that party scheduled for the 19th. He knows that that could be snap up day. Okay. So also why a certain someone is like, maybe I should just skip town around then, you know, he's like, I'm not coming to the party. I might skip my own inauguration. You got Butch Body also worried about, they're worried about it. Why? When all of the Dems are saying, we're not doing or saying anything. We're standing aside. Go ahead. You got it. Free and fair, right? Totally clear. And they're still like, someone's coming for us. Why? You've got these things happening, right? The FAR's out here where we now have suspects in custody because it wasn't as active God as people were saying. The explosions in the sky over in on the East Coast, I think the Carolinas, last night, just random. What the hell was that? There's a lot of stuff going on that I can't fully explain right now because we'll see how it all goes together, but you know it goes together. I don't know who is pulling which strings, but I feel like we're sitting in the middle of both sides, like, and one side is trying hard to start some shit leading up into the week. They're trying hard because you know there's one side that wants to declare martial law, and they are going to do whatever they can to try to lay the field for that to happen. So it's going to be interesting watching what else they've been having cooking to make that happen. But rabbit hole speculation on my part, I think that's a part of it too. I think that's going to be added to the stack, the towering stack of charges these people have been building for themselves over this whole session. All the illegal activity they've been doing, all the federal laws they've been breaking publicly, and everyone's like, what the fuck? So we have the certification. We have the conviction / official sentencing. These are all important points that needed to happen in order for those executive orders, etc., to really come into effect, to come into play. Then on top of that, pay attention to the information that was released, is being released, is continuing to be released. You've got the House J6 committee and their almost 900-page report. You've got the Jack Smith report coming out, again, for similar things. You have international nations saying, we have proof of the same thing connected to Muscatina, all right, who I'm sure is mentioned in some of the other reports. We've got sanctions on Ruski, Chinese takeaway, I ran away, all right? Like, it's brewing, guys. It's brewing. So stop watching the TV wanting to see his tiny hands in handcuffs because that's, you're thinking too small. That will not solve the problem. That doesn't snap up the tech bros. That doesn't snap up the people putting money into this, okay? That doesn't stop the Zuckies and the Muscatinas. You understand? There's so much more that has to be stopped. It's not just him. He's the stooge. He's the Trojan horse. So I'm going to put those in the caption. Take a look and just hang on, baby.
And bomb, arrest the president. You got the evidence. That nigga is Russian intelligence. When it rains, it pours.
I looked at Iowa and we got trouble, my friends, in River City. Hi, I'm Nicole. I just play piano, but sometimes I'm like clicking around in my data and I accidentally come across things, and here they are. This is a chart showing the percentage vote of each precinct's absentee percent versus its election date percent. I don't know why it looks like that. I don't know why there's a hole here and a hole here and it looks like two sets of parallel lines. I do not know. Here's 2020. Here's what 2020 looks like. I don't know. So I was doing some other looking into Iowa because I've been working with a few different new models for the past few days, and one of them is called the Spilkin model, and I really like saying Spilkin model, but what that is basically a tool to measure the distribution of votes based on the turnout percentage for each precinct. And here's 2020. You can see the dots are evenly distributed all across the chart because there's like over 1,000 precincts in Iowa. So if you have, let's say, a red dot right here, would mean that Trump got a high percentage of the vote in a precinct that had a high turnout. So you can see, like, that's what that dot means. And like over here, this blue dot, this dude means that Kamala got a low percentage of the vote in a precinct with low turnout. And it looks pretty well distributed. Here's 2024. All those well-distributed dots have just been pushed into the middle here. And something that's interesting is it almost looks as if these dots have hit, boop, a wall, right once they've gotten like between 80 and 85. As if like a cap had been put on the voter percentage or the turnout percentage or something. The lines are crossing over each other. It looks real pretty. And I saw one other way of presenting kind of that same data that I wanted to try, except what this one does is it shows you how many votes there were in each precinct with a certain number of turnout. So I'll show you 2020. Here's 2020, and there's a few things that are odd that stick out to me here, like this valley and this valley and this valley, which would mean to me that there's a lot less votes in precincts with this number turnout. So I thought that was odd. My AI data analyst I was working with didn't seem bothered by it though, and what you can see is overall both candidates have like a general curve. There's a general curve going on. Here's 2024. It's giving Mount Crumpet. All those votes that had been here are now pushed all the way over to around 75, with, you know, there's a little hard drop off here and a little hard drop off here. And you can see here Harris has a higher number of votes than Trump, but it's nothing compared to this mountain. So I'm definitely not alleging anything happened. That didn't go so great for Ann Seltzer, but a lot of people had been asking me about Iowa. So there's Iowa. Draw your own conclusions.
So as a reminder, y'all, I said it back when he said he was going to do it, and my position on this has not changed, which is, A, if you have a regime coming in that you know is coming for your head, why would you sit there anyway? Like, he knows he would be a target, so the fact that y'all were upset at people who are targets of the regime saying they are going to get out of Dodge before the regime comes in and takes their heads almost literally, if not literally, I don't know why that's like shocking or depressing. Like, what do you think Jack Smith could do if he stayed in the Dumpty regime? Like, what do you think would happen? It doesn't make sense. Come on, think. Now, if you don't believe that the regime is getting in and you believe something else is cooking, then a lot of these key people who are resigning with this administration would be great picks for some future roles. If, you know, speculation. So, yeah, that's the answer I said then, and I'm sticking with it, okay? So don't get discouraged when people who said they would leave at the end of this administration go ahead and leave, because my answer is still the same. Why would you want them to stay with the incoming regime literally calling for their heads? Like, pointless, that they wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. And B, I don't think they're leaving because of the regime. I think something else is going to be offered to them. Don't forget, a bunch of those executive orders that Joe Biden signed the other week put an order of succession in place for the heads of these departments. If there's no administration and for some reason we need an emergency, someone has to fill the role for an interim amount of time. That is a very specific thing to put in an order for, especially when you know the incoming regime is going to throw it away immediately. They're not interested in any of the people that Joe Biden laid out in the succession order, okay? It's okay? And he knows that Dumpty would get rid of it immediately. So there's only one reason you would set that up. And it's just in case you need a backup temporary interim administration to keep things rolling while certain other things are being handled and ironed out. It's the only reason to do that. So anyway, yeah, my answer stays the same.
Good morning, Blue Lilies. I hope you're doing okay today. It's Saturday, January 11th, which all the spirituals say is a very important day, that this is a portal. We're 111. If you want something, today is the day to ask for it. And I know that that is really challenging for a lot of us today because everything in the world seems so big and so bad and so scary. And you're valid to feel that way. I want to validate those feelings. I love to send out hope and positivity, but I think that toxic positivity is a real thing too. And so if you're feeling whatever it is you're feeling today, feel it. Let it out. Things aren't looking good for our little old TikTok here, and it's looking like, based on the arguments that they saw yesterday, that it's likely that this will be going away at the end of next weekend. And it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking to me because I was not an overnight success here. I spent a really long time. It took me a year and a half to get to 5,000 followers. It took me like another month to get to 10, and as of this morning, I'm just about at 40,000 followers. So I'm happy that I hadn't made any life changes in order to depend on having TikTok be my side hustle, but I'm just really feeling a lot of pain and sympathy for those who did, because how horrible. Like, a lot of people are going to lose their livelihoods over this, and so I'm not going to tell you like, oh, everything's going to be fine, because for them for a long time it won't, and that's hard. The Joker got his little fake sentence yesterday, and we knew that that was exactly what was going to happen, but it does solidify that he is indeed a convicted felon, and he will have to submit his DNA into the DNA database. But it's hard to believe anything will happen about that, just because if you or I had done that, we would lose everything, and he just gets to say, oh look, everybody loves me, even the smooth operator-in-chief loves me, and it's hard to watch. I was really encouraged by the fact that the leaders of British Columbia came out and said that someone had indeed been fiddling in their costume contests, and they're going to investigate that to the fully. And so that means we have Venezuela, Georgia, Romania, UK, Germany, and now Canada saying that somebody or something, I wonder who, could have been fiddling with their freedom. And yet for us, we still hear nothing. Word on the street is that we have until the very 11th hour of next Sunday to hear something there as well. And I mean, it's 11:11. I'm gonna go ahead and hope for that to be true, but it's scary out here. And so this morning, when I was trying to come up with what to say to you guys, I was thinking like, well, what can I do? What can I say to not add to the despair while still being completely real with y'all? Because that was the promise that I made to you. And I kept hearing Run by Snow Patrol. You know, light up, as if you have a choice. Even if you cannot hear my voice, I'll be right beside you, dear. And that's exactly it. No matter what happens. I mean, I have a blue sky that I've never posted to before. It's Gretchen's Got Questions. And then I'm going to go to my YouTube. I currently have my old cringy videos. It's still under Goosebumps with Gretchen, but I will be changing the name and working on it in the next week. But regardless, even if you cannot hear my voice or the voice of anybody else that you love and appreciate here, we're all here. We're not going anywhere, no matter what happens. And it feels like something very scary is going to happen. You're not alone. And that's the reason why I've made this community. That's the reason why I want to do this. You're not alone, okay? I'm here. All of the people that you probably see over here with the hearts and the comments, they're here too. And maybe it's true. Maybe when it's darkest, you can see the stars. And maybe those stars are the people that are next to you, the people that you love, the people that you cherish, the people that you've never met that you feel connected to, like I do with so many of you. You're my stars, you're my silver lining, and we're not going anywhere. Even if they try to silence us. I mean, how well has that ever gone in the past? There's certainly been big dips in freedom, but freedom always comes back. So even though it feels like you cannot see your hand in front of you because it's so dark, that does not mean whatever room you're standing in is not there. You don't know how big or small it is. You don't know what else is in there, but you are still here and you have to keep going, okay? Do not let that despair and that hopelessness and that sinking feeling that we're all feeling eat you up inside, because you are made of stardust. You have come from lines and generations of people who have been through worse. And here you are. And it is imperative that you keep going, not only for yourself, but for those who will continue to follow in our footsteps. Continue to sow strength and light and fortitude. Sow it into your very DNA so that when it gets passed on, that will continue to go. And if you do nothing else, please be loving to one another. You are a light. You have a little light inside of you, and it is so important that you let it shine, even when it's dark, because that's when you can see it the best. Okay? So like I said, I've got a blue sky. It's Gretchen's Got Questions. I'll link it somewhere over here on my profile. I'm working on my YouTube, and I will do my best to keep connected with you, but don't despair, okay? No matter what, don't despair. You are here on purpose, and I cannot wait to find out what that purpose is for you, okay? So you hang in there, keep your eyes up, keep your feet on the ground. I'll see you next time.
Hello. So there's another petition out called PMRFNJ to have Congress uphold the Constitution, to disqualify Trump formally, to enforce it. That petition is right there. So just go on your cell phone, text 50409, the letters PMRFNJ, and you're good to go. And we already have like 2,000 signatures or so, maybe 2,500, and the momentum is speeding up. People are realizing that Trump is disqualified. Trump is unqualified to enter into the presidency seat and get inaugurated. It's illegal. The awareness is spreading fast, and the ones who are signing this, the public will know that these are the leaders of the country.
All right, y'all, it's rolling around in my head, which means I have to say it out loud. I need you to bear with me, all right? So, it's been sticking out to me that this dude is now saying, and has been saying for the last few weeks, that he should have gotten California. California had odd fray because he should have gotten it. And it sticks out to me as suspicious as fuck, especially since on testing day, remember in the beginning when Pennsylvania was originally looking a little blue and he started toilet twatting out that there's odd fray going on in Pennsylvania pay because it was looking blue, and then as soon as it started ticking red, he shut the fuck up and didn't say anything else, and at the end he was like, yeah, there was no odd fray, there was no eating Jay, this was totally free and fair, I accept it, I'm okay with these results, right? That was the day of. Now he's like, actually, I should have gotten California. There was odd fray in California because I should have gotten that. And we all know when he says stuff, it's an admission, right? And we also know that there's no fucking way in hell that he was going to get California. So I'm not sure what to fully think about that, but notice how right now the fires that are allegedly acts of God that start in parking lots, residential areas, dumpsters, acts of God, are happening because Dems are in control here. They're happening because their people didn't win. The governor they wanted isn't in here. The mayor they wanted isn't in here. On Fox, they're outright saying, oh, white men should be in charge. It should only be white men. Look, the mayor's a black woman. If it was a white man, it'd be better. Look, the fire chief's a gay woman. If she were a white straight man, it'd be better. Like, they're just outright saying it, but at the same time, they're fully blaming everything on Gavin Newsom because he's a Dem. So white men can fix everything except for if they're Dem white men, at which point it's the same as being a black woman. I'm not sure on the calculations there. We're being punished for not choosing them. The deity is punishing us for being blue. And like I've said before, I'm in Temecula. We're a county over. A lot of firefighters around here. And they've been chilling these last few days, the ones that are here. I've seen people flying in from South Africa, Canada, Mexico, coming in from the surrounding states. Temecula Fire Department is sitting right here, chilling, barbecuing with their kids. And I point that out because this town right here is filled with loyalists that are tied to the likes of Butchbody, okay? The Dumpty family. They've invited them to town to speak at their steeple people places repeatedly. So this is a little pocket of suspicious as fuck people. This is a little pocket where people got stranded in Coachella, came back here, and still talked about how much they love their dirty diaper vessel king and how they would gladly let their homes burn if it meant it would prove a point to the Dems. I'm not sure how to thread all of that together just yet, but it's an interesting sequence here, right? I'm going to let that roll around. But you feel me? Something is right. Something needs to be thought through there.
Good morning, Blue Lulus. Today is the day that we might just see the report from Jack the Pumpkin King. Now, this has been a long, drawn-out battle. For the last couple of weeks, Jack the Pumpkin King and the Joker have been going back and forth about not having his 900-page report released to the public. And a lot of people are wondering why. Is it just because he doesn't want the smoke and he doesn't want people reminded of what he did 4 Januaries ago? Because presumably we all understand and fully recognize that he is a kegerectionist, right? We were all there. We watched him give that speech at the Ellipses. We watched him tell everybody to go down there and then park his fat butt back in the office in front of the television with the Big Mac and just as they tried to the Vice Penguin. You know what I mean? So why is he worried about it? Because apparently we all saw it with our own 2 eyes, and yet still he has come out unscathed. But Rule 14.3 is clear. It says that anybody who is a kegerectionist is not allowed to hold this seat. And the biggest basketball court in all the land here in Colorado adjudicated him as a kegerectionist. They said that he did it, and they said that it was up to Congress to decide whether or not they're going to bring it to the floor. And in the event that one of them does, it takes a 2/3 majority to remove that disqualification, not to enforce it. And this is what I was all hung up on the 6th, and I was sure that this was going to happen, but somebody in the comments or tag somebody and let me know in the event that they could still do it once this report comes out. Can they call a special session? Does it have to be little Mikey with the big secret that does it? Because that ruling from the Colorado basketball court said that not only ought Congress do it, but they're actually obliged to do it, and that he is just as disqualified as somebody who's under the age of 34 or under the age of 35 or not a natural born citizen. He is objectively disqualified, and that they ought to enforce that. Now, it's confusing to me because I don't know how much more proof you could possibly need, but in theory, when we have this report come out, maybe, just maybe, someone will come out with their big pants on. Governor Zaddy over there on the West Coast came out and told the Joker, hey, if you want to keep spreading all this mis and disinformation and getting people to hate us while we're in the middle of the apocalypse, you come over here and say it to my face, bro. Come on over. Stop being an internet troll. And you know what? We need more of that. Yes. More, please. More, please. And in the last couple of days, numerous cold country operatives have been arrested at our southern border as well as inside of the U.S., and they are using EO 13848 as their enforcement to do so. So there is something moving. We don't know what the result will be, but there are wheels turning, okay? I'm no longer in the prediction business. I don't know the outcome, but there is some hope today. I'm feeling okay. I cannot wait for this report to come out. They said as early as today, so I don't know if it will officially be today, but it could potentially be today. Get your chat GPT ready, because ain't nobody reading 900 pages of anything. But if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, comment, and a follow. Join our Blue Lulu clan. It's nice and cozy over here, and I will see you next time. Take care.
There was news this morning that I can almost guarantee you missed, but you need to hear it. Yes, Trump completed his coming out party from convicted felon to felon, and yes, TikTok is fighting for its life in front of the Supreme Court. But before all of that was the final jobs report of Joe Biden's presidential career. And in that report, we found that in December, we created 256,000 jobs in the United States. The unemployment rate dropped to 4.1%, and wage gains hit 3.9% year over year, which well outpaced inflation. This cements the fact that for every one of the 48 months that Joe Biden was president, we had positive jobs growth. And it also confirms that he has been one of the greatest economic presidents we've ever had. And within 45 days, Donald Trump will be taking credit for all of it. And I'm fine with it, because that's the difference between progressives and conservatives. I don't want to score political points at the expense of people in my community, besides the history books will remember. So while Trump is over there on Truth Social writing Gavin Newsom for the 472nd time in 48 hours, I will be thanking Joe Biden for being a phenomenal president and for giving Donald Trump an economy that is so strong it might actually be able to survive his bullshit.
So this is a question that has been asked multiple times, but I haven't really had time to process through the whole thing because it gets complex because, again, I'm presidented. However, in regards to what happens initially if nothing occurs before January 20, what I need us to understand is that the results of that will be a slow decline into that tyranny. I talked to you guys about the threat is that he has subverted the supreme law, right? Article 6 supremacy clause, and what? Through inaction, he violated Article 2 of his oath, therefore directly violating Article 6 supremacy clause, which assures that there's nothing supreme to the Constitution. Nothing can be above that. Democracy, a president, etc. He has a duty to execute all laws faithfully, and he did not do that. Within that reality, like any other contract, you sign it, and if a party violates the terms and conditions, then it becomes null. That's exactly what occurs with our social contract, except what we have to look at is Article 6, Section 3. That positions that the state government has an obedience to the federal constitution. But when that dissolves, we default to our own state constitution. In that reality, you have to look at your state constitution. In regards to California, our constitutional rights are not dependent on the United States Constitution. What does that mean? It means that upon Donald Trump becoming president and him unlawfully extending non-consensual use of force in California, then there is a provocation of lawful conflict from whether the state government or Californians. We then have the lawful solution to respond because John Locke, a political philosopher who influenced our actual social contract, and these words are engraved in the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It says, wherever law ends, tyranny begins. But what's also the dissolution of the rule of law? That's also anarchy, because while the government doesn't have an obedience to the rule of law because they subverted it, the people don't have an obedience to following that administration. However, what this means for your state depends on whether your state government is actually going to default to Donald Trump or not. And in that reality where you're in a red state and they will default to Donald Trump, there needs to be decisions made that I cannot make for you. However, how you go about that will be determined within your state constitution and what your state government has an obedience to. And yes, we do have Article 6, Section 3, which puts them in obedience to the federal constitution. Once that's dissolved, they're required to protect you through the state constitution because the state constitution is derived from the federal constitution. However, this can get complex if you're in a red state because who's going to enforce it, right? It has to be we the people. However, the measurements in which we the people and even state governments resist the administration depends on the level of force used under his administration as well. Is it legal violence? Is it political violence? Or is it actual violence? That all will dictate how a response is made and whether or not he is violating state rights, for instance, blue states. However, coming from California, what this does mean is that after January 20, 2025, if Donald Trump is inaugurated, this means that our governor, Gavin Newsom, has the lawful authority, supreme authority, because the constitutional on the federal level has dissolved, at least its force as a rule of law. He has that authority to kick out the feds, including DHS, which is the head of ICE. Why? Because the federal government, the federal agencies only have authority to enter into states like sanctuary states, like California, because they have federal authority under the constitutional legitimacy. Once that's dissolved, they no longer have legitimate reign of the states. And as such, our governor, Gavin Newsom, can basically kick out ICE after January 20 if he wishes to. And as that severity increases, if our governor fails to do so, then we the people are in charge of enforcing that eviction notice for ICE. You can code that however you want.
We need to quit DJT. Full stop. This man has consumed every aspect of our society. No matter what you're watching, no matter what you're doing, he always comes up. And it's been that way for the last, 10 years? Is anyone just sick of it? Is anyone just tired of people capitulating over every little thing he says or does? That's all mainstream media talks about now. And it's all we talk about here. I'm guilty of it as well. This is a drug that is killing us. It is deteriorating our very society from the inside out. Look at all the rights that we've lost, continuing to keep him around. And we have multiple opportunities. We've had multiple opportunities to be done with him. What happened in 2021, January 6th? The documents case. What happened in Georgia? The hush money case. And that's just to name a few. Every opportunity that we have, that we get to be done with him, why is it that we always drag our feet? I think we all know the answer to it. No one wants to say it, but I'll say it. It benefits us to talk bad about him. People get views and make money off of telling the world what a bad person he is. And he knows that. And that's why he says the most outlandish, craziest, wackiest, unimaginable things, because controversy creates cash. Oh my God, he's an insurrectionist. Oh my God, he's an adjudicated rapist. Oh my God, he's a convicted felon. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Advertisers, sponsorships, because you told the world what a bad person DJT is. And yet, for all intents and purposes, he is currently slated to be the leader of our country for the next 4 years. How does that make us look? It makes us look crazy. But I'm the crazy one for talking about constitutional law and talking about how it's the responsibility of the millionaires and billionaires in suits on Capitol Hill to hold him accountable. None of these things I've spoken about is a theory. It's actual facts, constitutional law. Although it's not guaranteed that anything will be done, and it was never guaranteed that anything will be done, I would be just as guilty for complying in advance, which is exactly what a lot of these content creators and others are doing. They're telling you to shut up and accept it, that he is our society now. He is so ingrained in who we are that it's changed the very fabric of what America is now. We can't even call ourselves a democracy. We're an oligarchy. We are a country where the rich and powerful rule everything. Maybe that's always been the case, but that's not in America I want to live in. That is not the true America. We define what America is. We just can't move on. We cannot quit this drug because it is a drug. It's a drug that's killing us. And for us to have a prosperous future, we have to quit it. We have to be done with DJT. And so I stand by what I said. Don't come to me about anything he says. Miss me with anything crazy that he says or does. The only way we are going to be able to move forward from DJT is to stop giving him attention. This is a cancer that needs to be cut out. And until we do it, things are just going to keep getting worse. Look at all the rights we've lost. All these corrupt politicians just breaking the rules. Until we cut out this cancer and hold him accountable, more and more DJTs will just keep showing up. And be careful of the people using terms like false hope. Anything that means comply in advance. Avoid them like the plague, because they are a part of the reason why he's still around. They benefit from him. They won't say it, but they know they do. I want things to be normal again. I want things to be boring again. Can we go back to having a normal life where we wake up, we eat, we work, and we live? Can I have an America where DJT no longer exists? That's all I want now. That's all I desire. Anyways, quick reminder, If this app goes away, you can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky. Just go to my profile, click links, go to my link tree, and you will see every single link for Raw Cognizance. And let's stay hopeful something does happen within these next, 8 days? Miracles happen every day. So stay hopeful, trust your gut, and always know you are not crazy.
So apparently there's some sort of security thing going on at Mar-a-Lago. I only know this because people keep commenting it on posts. I haven't been able to verify anything, both on TikTok or in the actual news. I mean, if we think about it, it really could be anything. You know, I don't know. It could be old too, so just a heads up. But one thing I did notice, just thinking about it, is around 3 o'clock, we were sitting here watching movies. We've been having another in-the-house movie day because it's cold outside and snowy. But around 3 o'clock, the post with Joe Biden and Trump in the Oval Office, just those two pictures, started kicking off again. I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with that. I don't know if it's just the usual activity. But it's kind of weird that it started popping off right around the same time. Like, I've noticed it comes in waves. It's weird. I mean, I still get hits on videos from forever ago, but you can usually see somebody's found my page and looked at a couple different videos, and that's fine. But in this case, it's like I'll get a wave of bot activity on those posts that are basically shit posts. They're posts that are, like, triggering to them. They're jokes. And then that's the other part of it. Like, I don't think they understand that we do have a sense of humor. Like, just because that's what I'd like to manifest happening doesn't mean that I'm well aware that might not be what happens, okay? Like, I don't know why they're like, are you gonna cry? Like, no, bud. No, I'm not, but you will when you realize how much those tariffs cost you, bro. Like, I already know how much shit's gonna cost. That's why we're looking at what we can get rid of. But yeah, so. Just saying. Don't know if there's an actual legitimate security threat, but I do know that the MAGA bots started churning up on those posts about 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I don't know. I don't know if they're connected. I don't know if it's just a coincidence. I have no idea. I'm just letting you know.